If you've been struggling with your putting, not putting optimally based off what you think you should, if you are a beginner and you want to learn how to putt better, you're a mid-level handicap, you play a couple times a week, or you're a touring pro and you want to improve your status, maintain your card, win a tournament, qualify for the majors, Ryder Cup, President's Cup, any of those things, then today's guest is someone you're really, really going to want to pay attention to. This is his second time on the show. I was very, very fortunate for him to come on again. I've developed a bit of a friendship with him as I've known him for a number of years now. And his name is Geoff Mangum, and he is a putting theorist and the world's leader by far when it comes to anything and everything to do with putting. We go very, very deep in today's show, and it was a marathon session of about 3 hours. And as always, when you talk to Geoff, you could talk for 6 hours and really not scratch the surface. But we get into, in this show, we get into a lot on why golfers of all skill levels have trouble and struggle in aiming the putter face square to the intended line that they want to hit the ball on. It doesn't matter if you're a beginner, scratch handicap, PGA Tour pro, all of them have issues with aiming the putter. And most often they aim it out to the weak side. So for a right-hander, out to the right. Geoff gets into the science behind that, the neuroscience, and how all of that works. We also talk about reading greens, both instinctively and scientifically. And scientifically, in this particular instance, deals a lot with physics. So percentage slopes, different angles, the easiest way to learn how to read greens. He goes very much in depth into the physics world, but if you really listen, he breaks it down in a very detailed sense, but he also breaks it down in a very simplistic sense in why anyone he works with, their putting just magically, so to speak, goes to a whole new level. And then last, we do touch on why even PGA Touring pros have room for a minimum of about a 20% improvement in their putting, just based off what he's watched over more than 3 decades of studying putting, neuroscience, physics, and anything that has to do with the flat stick. So, again, a very, very in-depth show. Any of you tech geeks and science geeks are really going to enjoy this one. For those of you who might not be as scientifically inclined, check it out anyway, because again, Geoff has a knack of making something very, very scientific, very simple as well, and everybody is going to take something from this episode. Now, one little thing we're having for everybody: Geoff's book, his original book called "Optimal Putting: Brain, Science, Instincts, and the 4 Skills of Putting." I will have a link in the summary to that will go to my website, where you can get Geoff's book in PDF format for only $9.95 on our website. So don't forget to check that out. It's an amazing book. It was written a number of years ago, but all of it still holds true, and nobody has even come close to writing a book as in-depth and as good on putting as Geoff has. So, as we always do, please give a big, warm Golf 360 welcome to the world leader in putting and putting theorist, Mr. Geoff Mangum. What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Golf 360 podcast. I'm the host, Pete Popovich. So you may be asking yourself, what is Golf 360? And Golf 360 is a show that was designed to introduce you to people associated with the game of golf to help you improve not only at your game, but also your life. Almost all of our guests are from within the industry in some way, shape, or form, but some of the guests we have are from outside the industry, and it mainly revolves around the business world with a few others scattered in here and there. Now, all of the guests that we have a few things in common. 1, they all were highly successful and accomplished in their field. 2, each has something to pass along that will help you in your game and your life. And 3, they were all more than willing to give back by passing along the things that they use to help them in their career, and even some of the mistakes that they made so that others don't make them in their journey. So I hope you find listening to them as enjoyable as I did interviewing them, and that each and every one of you benefits from the information that they so willingly and graciously pass along. Hey everybody, I want to give a big shout out to a new sponsor of the Golf 360 podcast, and that's Affinity Wealth Management Group. We all work exceptionally hard for our money, and none of us can afford to let that fall into the dark abyss of the big box financial service firms. and their jack of all trades and master of none mantra, which basically means you become a number within a cookie cutter model that's also often accompanied by massive fees. Your future deserves more than average returns and little attention. At Affinity Wealth Management, they ensure that your financial goals receive highly individualized, tailored attention from experts, not just advisors, who are in the industry to be great and not average. As a client of Affinity Wealth, you receive a customized solution to your customized life, keeping in mind your family's financial situation, values, and risk tolerance. Call Affinity Wealth today for a no-cost consultation with one of their experts at 724-754-8200. Again, that's 724-754-8200. Or you can also check them out on the web at www.affinitywealthmg.com. That's AFFINITYWEALTHMG.com. This podcast is brought to you in part by Just Thrive Probiotic. You may be surprised to learn that your digestive system is the key to creating and maintaining the quality of your physical, mental, and emotional health, and it's one of the body's most essential systems. That's why the majority of nutritionists today highly recommend probiotics as an indispensable nutritional supplement. As a discriminating consumer, you've probably been searching for a probiotic that is proven, potent, and effective, and you found it. Just Thrive is your best choice for maintaining a healthy lifestyle. Just Thrive Probiotic captures the power of hundreds of thousands of years of nature's design with a specialized bacillus strain formulation that guarantees survivability through the stomach and upper digestive system. Supports optimum gut health, digestive health, immune health, and delivers antioxidants. Great for adults, kids, and the whole family. Use promo code GOLF360 at www.thriveprobiotic.com for 10% off your order. All right, I'm here with Geoff Mangum, the world's leader in putting theorist, knows more about putting than anybody who's ever walked the planet. Jeff, thanks, as always, for making the time to come on.
Absolutely, Pete. Did y'all get killed by the tornadoes?
Well, it rolled through here for about the last hour. I haven't heard of anything bad. We just had quite a bit of rain, which is this time of year, pollen season. It helps us out. It knocks some of that stuff out of the air, and so everything will be yellow on the ground for a few days. It's better than it floating in the air and getting in your nose and your eyes and your mouth and everywhere else.
I just finished mowing the yard for the first time this spring.
Mm-hmm.
That stuff blowing all in my eyes and hair.
It's a tough time, for our area, and you've been down here quite a bit. On the coast. If the weather's perfect, like it has been, 65 to 72 degrees, we got the pollen. Or when the pollen disappears, we have the no-see-ums, the sand gnats. And then, the summer gets pretty hot, and then the winters are good, but it's just like every time that perfect temperature comes, we've got something to irritate the hell out of us. I don't know if you get that up in North Carolina in your area too, but
our social calendar is not quite as fat as yours. Yeah, you're, Hilton Head, Charleston, and all that.
Mm-hmm.
You highfalutin people.
Yeah, I'm out in Bluffton. I'm not that highfalutin. I can go on the island and falut with them, but I'm not the highfalutin.
Well, if I came down there, I'd have to make my living making knockoff baskets.
Yeah, there's a lot of you'd have a lot of competition for that.
Yeah, sure.
What I wanted to ask you that because you and I spent a little bit amount of time together since our last time you came on the show, and
Sure.
and a couple things we discussed. One question I wanted to really get into for this show was as people ask me more about you and want to learn about you and putting, is what is important for golfers to know when they do consider putting, or they think about it or procrastinate about it?
Well, what I found out was, at least through about 2004 or 5, nobody in golf even ever tried to teach the 4 skills of putting.
Mm-hmm.
That's a 150 years survey of the literature shows that nobody knows diddly squat. Nobody's ever written about the 4 skills. They don't say you got to read a putt, you got to aim according to the read, you got to stroke where you aim, and you got to do the pace control that matches the read to begin with. It's kind of stupid, but from 1870 to 2005 or so, there's nothing out there. There's a lot about stroke, and then there's terrible little itty bitty stuff about aiming from behind the ball and using the line on the ball. But there's next to nothing about reading a putt or distance control.
Mm-hmm.
And those two are the main skills. When you read a putt, you predict the curve across the green with your imagining a movie that has a specific ball speed or pace of putt embedded in your movie. And what the brain is doing is it's seeing and predicting the actual curve that the physics will generate in the external world. And then your instincts will aim into the start line of that curve. And because you have imagined with one ball speed, you have to, what you do from that point on to sink the putt is really not optional. You start it where you aimed and you send it off with the same ball speed you used to imagine the physics of the curve to begin with. So that's really what golfers need to hear. And instead, what golf always serves up is a whole lot of crapola about stroke, set up in motion, clasp it against your arm, use a claw grip, blah, 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 blah. And then all this other stuff about putters. Now, since about 2005, we've been flooded with, quote, technology, which most people can't afford, so don't worry about it. You know, like Sam Putt Lab, $7,000, and nobody can understand what it's trying to say. Quintic ball roll, however many thousands that piece of crap is. You know, it's just idiotic salesmanship through the magazines and the Golf Channel. Whatever will make a buck for somebody, they're going to come up with something and they're going to start peddling it. And the problem is it's not real golf instruction for putting. Real instruction is how many people do this, teach you their four skills, teach you how the four skills work, and teach you how the four skills integrate together as a total integrated enterprise of sinking the putt. Answer, nobody but me and the putting zone. I checked. If you don't believe that, check yourself. I've been kicking these other people in the rear that have showed up since about 2005 or 8 to do this. And they won't acknowledge that I kicked their butt into third gear on. You got to measure what body action does to cause good or bad strokes. Not measure the putter. Not measure the putter, Mr. Quintic, Mr. Hurian. Not measure the putter, Mr. Marquardt at Sam Putt Lab. You have to measure what body action causes it, good or bad strokes, and then you have to figure out what you would do with your body by neuroscience and instincts and physiology and anatomy in order to generate the good, effective body action. Nobody has done that yet. They ain't caught up. But they're trying to, because I've been kicking their butt and embarrassing them with basic logic. Sam Putt Lab has tried to measure a balance board, for example. That's sort of body action. They've tried to measure head movement with the headband. Okay, that's sort of body action, but it's not real. You make a putt on a Sam Putt Lab, you're not actually facing a putt. They say wherever you aimed it, we're going to consider that perfect aim for the read. No, it's not. Yeah. And if you hit it exactly where you aim, well, they don't even say that's exactly good. I mean, it would be nice if they actually said out loud, the Sam Putt Lab will help you learn how to hit it straight where you aim it. So that's the stroke skill. If you read it and aim it, by golly, what sense does it make to hit it somewhere other than where you aimed it? But that's where 96% of all golfers start, because they can't aim and they don't hit where they aim. Most people aim out to the right or the outside, and then they pull their putts to their feet.
Why is that? Why do so many people aim right or to
Well,
the weak
let's think
side?
about it and see if we can make some common sense out of the situation. You ever seen a 10-year-old kid putt?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now remember and tell me if this is wrong. They blast the ball way past the hole, and they actually have a really hard time looking down at the putter when they make their stroke. They're trying to throw a rock at a window pane. They face the hole. So children can't really get a hold of this idea of aim it and then put it where you aim. That's not even part of their programming. What they do is they face the hole and knock the snot out of it and hope it goes in the hole. All right, seriously, I mean, you can see this all the time.
Right.
So from ages 8, 9, 10, around about 11, 12, 13, they start trying to kind of regularize a little bit like everybody else is telling them to. And they sort of square up to the line and they sort of try to aim, but nobody's really told them how to aim. So what they do is they might get behind the ball and see, okay, I want to aim. Daddy said aim 2 balls right. And so they sort of get behind the ball. Then when they step around beside the ball at address, they do something else. They aim somewhere else. And they're not really tracking where their putter face aims because they don't know how to do that. And what they do is they just sort of aim yonder ways, and they're aiming out to the right, and then they're sort of pulling putts into the line they sort of think is there on the ground that they ought to be hitting it on. All right, so by the time you're 16, 17 years old and you're shooting for a Division I scholarship, full ride, playing AJGA, you ain't really doing much different. You don't know how to see where your putter face aims. You don't really know how to read putts and pick targets. Even if you did, you won't aim at the target. Y'all PGA players from 6 feet, 10 feet out, they're not aiming worth diddly squat. If they get behind the ball and aim the line on the ball, fine. But what they do is they step up beside the ball and they change it. And you can't do that because you don't know the skill for standing beside a ball, running your eyeball on the ground like a laser beam in a dead straight line sideways 20 or 30 feet. And that line being exactly the 90 degree off the putter face where you've aimed your putter face. They don't have that skill. The putting zones, they used to have a trick in the 50s, but they didn't really describe it very well. And that trick is now nobody knows it because people don't read magazines from the 50s. They don't read books. But it's in everybody's book in the 50s, especially Bob Rossberg and people like that. Even Arnold Palmer knew how to do this. But that skill that was a gimmick back in the 50s and 60s, that's totally lost today on these narcissistic little Division I players. And so when they set up beside the ball, they don't know where their putter's pointing. And if they change their putter something different from the line on the ball, that they aim from behind the ball, they don't know what they're doing, and they don't know where it points. What they're actually doing to succeed from beside the ball when they're like pointing and crap is they're aiming their body action. So what does that mean? If there's 150 yards shot to a flagstick on a green, you walk up with your 7-iron or whatever club is your 150-yard shot, and you just walk into your setup and you put your club down, you're aimed. There's not a whole lot of people that get behind the ball on a 7-iron and line it up to the flagstick. They just walk into their setup and put their club down. That's because they're aiming their body action. When I was a self-taught 7-iron range rat, I hit more balls than VJ Singh. Hey, VJ, kiss my foot. I hit more balls than you. I can empty one of those large little miniature golf bags with about 600 golf balls.
Mm-hmm.
I can empty one of those in about an hour, a few minutes, and just stand there for 8 hours and empty them all. I've done it plenty of times. I've spent 10 hours on driving range for 6 months in a row. So VJ, kiss my foot. What happens is if you self-teach yourself, you end up with a pull stroke with a 7-iron. And I used to hit my 7-iron about 200 yards dead straight at age 40. And so whenever I would aim my shot, I would close up to the line because I'm going to pull it. When teachers PGA of America teachers, they didn't actually want to teach me, but I got a couple of them to agree to tell me stuff. They wanted to square me up to the aim line and all this business, putting a little aiming stick on the ground. And as soon as I moved my left foot away from the line and unclosed my stance, everything was high, right, and weak. All right, so back to putting. If everybody, basically 95, 96% of people are like used to be kids putting out, aiming out to the right and pulling it, they're still doing it, even as they get on the PGA Tour. Morikawa, for example, he's terrible. He's like 200. He's 192 out of 205 or so players on PGA Tour for putting. And when I watch his stroke, I go, "Good Lord, man! Nobody's even told him basic stuff." But what they do is they aim their pull. If you're going to aim your pull, you're going to aim out to the right for a right-handed golfer. And they don't know that because they don't know how to check the putter face aim to see where it's going. I've taught lots and lots of PGA of America teachers that are all installed on the back of a range somewhere at a nice golf course. And I'll say, okay, 30-foot putt, where are you aiming? And they should be aiming a foot and a half to the right. And they'll say, I'm aiming a foot and a half to the right. You get behind them with the laser and you find out they're aiming 6 feet to the right. And they didn't know that. 35, 40-year-old PGA of America teachers never learned where they're aiming. So you got to kind of know the history. You ask me why do people do that. This is why. Jim Furyk, for example, they put him in a big picture book. They took a big full-page picture of him standing at a putt. And they said, tell us something, expert. He said, well, I like to stand open to my putts because it makes me see the line, helps me see the line better. No. Kids stand open to the putt and putt diagonally out of their body because they're looking at the hole when they shoot. And if that continues through your teenage years and nobody ever actually teaches you anything about how to putt where you aim, that would completely wreck that little system. If you tried to actually putt 90 degrees off the putter face. And so there's some few golfers that kind of knew there's a problem. And they started using the line on the ball, and they started committing, quote unquote, to put the line on the ball. What else would they do? They got behind the ball, they used the dominant eye, they lined it up dead straight at the target. Target's right or wrong. So what else would you do? But they're like talking about this some sort of plan B they could have done. No. Now if they line up on the ball dead straight at a good read, a good start line for a good curve, and then step around at address and change it, what kind of nutcase is that?
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I get a lot of that teaching where people say,
Yeah.
I try to get them to use a line, at least to help them get going, get that putter.
Well,
point.
Tiger Woods is one of the very few who you can see he was very rigid when he got around beside at address. And he would creep his putter head out. He would take like 2 practice swings inside the ball, and then he would creep his putter head away from him behind the ball, square it up. And then for the longest time, for about 2 years, he kept his feet back. He didn't walk his feet in after he scooched the putter out behind the ball. And somehow or another, somebody, either he sort of realized it or somebody told him something 2 or 3 years later, where if you scooch the putter away from you, you completely messed up your setup, and you need to move your feet towards the ball as well to recover that setup. So he started doing that too. But basically, if you refrain from re-aiming at address because you don't know how, and you don't know where a putter face has been pointed, looking down at it from address, you should quit. And Tiger is one of the few that learned that lesson somehow or another.
How do you
really what you should do is you should learn how to tell where a putter points. It's kind of stupid.
what process do you use to do that? To teach somebody
Well,
that?
there's a geometry of the head and the face. If you consider the face as part of the skull, and you say, what is the vertical axis of rotation of the skull? And that is a line from the center of your neck out the top of your head. And what is the aim of the face? And you say, what do you mean the face? You're talking about the lips, the nose? No. The ear hole in your skull over the corner of your eye socket in the skull, that line is 90 degrees to the axis of rotation.
Mm-hmm.
Now, your eyeballs, they can point up, down, left, right, down, 8 different directions. The eyeballs are not what you're using to figure out, to run your eyes as a laser beam straight sideways along the ground. You're matching the eye beam out of your eyeballs to the face angle. And then when you spin that axis of rotation of the head like an apple on a stick, that perpendicular relationship between axis of rotation of the head, vertical, and the aim of the face, 90 degrees off that axis, and eyeballs and eye beam out of the face, also the same as the face, 90 degrees off the axis of rotation, that will look sideways in a dead straight line. All right. So, like if I'm 5 feet away from where a wall meets a floor and I square up my body to the wall, so my chest is parallel to the wall, if I then point my face at the line on where the wall meets the floor, how would you do that? If you have an arrow stuck through the back of your head straight out the bridge of your nose about another foot, that arrow point or the arrowhead at the end of that 1 foot is not where the eyes usually look. The eyes usually look lower than that arrowhead. So you have to raise your eyeballs up so they match the aim of the face. The arrow is the aim of the face, and that's 90 degrees to the head spin. So what you do is you figure out how to aim your eyeballs the same as the face aims. And then if you looked over that arrow point and you just rolled your head down towards the line on where the wall meets the floor,
Mm-hmm.
it's only when eyeball, arrowhead, line match. Then if you spin your head, it will run exactly down the line on the floor, sideways, as long as you want to go. The way people look down their face with their eyeballs, if you tried to trace the line on the floor where the wall meets the floor sideways to the left 20 feet with that arrangement of eyeballs, face, and axis of rotation of the head, it will curl to the inside. And you'll go way left to the target, and then you'll go, and then you'll pop your head back to the right to get the eyeballs looking at the hole or whatever you thought was the target. So you take this little circuitous route to get to the target, and you never actually find out where the putter face aims. You just point your eyes where you want it to point it. That's what people do. They just don't know because they can't track what's happening with their vision on the ground. But if you make a 90 degrees with your eyeball straight out of your face, then you rotate your head, it will run sideways. Any line, you don't have to stand over the ball or anything. It could be 10, 20 yards away. You'll run exactly sideways. And then when you get finished running, you keep your eyes the same attitude out of your head, same aimed as your face. Whatever shows up in your eye, that's where your putter is actually pointing. It's not hard. You just got to learn run your eyeball sideways straight.
So, and that eyeball, so from the line of the ear through the corner of the eye, that's
right. Same as a piece of glasses, side piece on the glasses. If you put a laser on the side of your head on that line,
mm-hmm.
and then you lowered your face until that laser is shown at the line where the floor meets,
right.
where the wall meets the floor, and then you just put your finger on top of your head and spin it like an apple on a stick, that laser beam will run dead straight sideways.
And it doesn't matter if the back of your head is flat to the ground or if you're
that's
5 feet away. It's
sort
important
of backed
that
into the parking spot.
It's important.
They got perpendicularity, but they didn't know how they got it. Somebody sitting on a toilet just came up with a little gimmick. Put your eye over the ball, put the back of your head flat, and then spin your head like an apple on a stick. Well, that's everything. That's physically is going to make a perpendicular eyeball aim out of your head because your eye is over the ball and the back of your head is flat.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't know that the real secret is the perpendicularity, and you don't have to have your eye over the ball. This little see sideways system, it's just geometry. It's not dominant eye or any of that baloney. And if you say, well, give me more details so I can get this right. Okay. Make a salute with your hand, with your right hand for a right-handed golfer, and lower it from your eyebrows across your pupils to just so your pupils are looking directly on top of the hand. Right? If you look down at the wall where the wall meets the floor, you won't see the line where the wall meets the floor until your forehead is actually aiming your face at it, because your eyeballs are not allowed to look down out of your face. They're looking straight out. All right, so if you lowered your salute hand from eyebrows across pupils and then get them so the pupils are looking over the top of your knuckles,
Mm-hmm.
your hand will stop just below the very bridge of your nose. All right, that's one. All right, so let me explain a different way. If you close one eye, close the left eye, for example, for a right-handed golfer, the right eye has an egg shape of vision. The little part of the egg is inside the bridge of your nose, and the fat part of the egg is out over there at your eye socket corner. And it's a little tilt. It tilts from fat edge up to eyebrow. Up to bridge of nose on about a 45-degree angle or so. But that's just the shape. The top of the egg is made by your nose getting in the way and by your eyebrow getting in the way. So right up there where the eyebrow meets the nose is the top of the egg, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now here's the trick about that shape. It ain't got nothing to do with where your eyeballs point, because you can move your eyeballs all over heck in creation, and that shape won't change. The shape is made by your face. All right, so take your eyeball and point it down towards the fat part of the egg. The egg shape didn't change. Take your eyeball and point it towards the skinny, small part of the egg up the left. The egg shape doesn't change. You just point your eyes in different places through the egg, right?
That's right.
All right, now, there is one and only one magic spot when you point your eyes the same as your face. It's about 1 inch in from the bridge of your nose in the top of that little small part of that egg. So take your little fingertip on your right eye. Your left eye is closed. Your right eye is open. Your fingertip of the right hand is touching the bridge of your nose, and then suck that horizontally to the right 1 inch and stop. That spot is where your eyeball matches your face aim. That's where the laser beam of vision goes out of your head, dead straight 90 degrees to the axis of rotation. There's only one spot. So you don't really need to lower your hand. You just need to look through that spot out of the egg of vision of your face. And then the eyeball will match the face aim. All right, so if you do that, and then you parallel up to a wall, and then you lower your forward until you see the line where the wall meets the floor, that will be face aiming at the line. Now spin your head sideways to the left, and that spot runs the line exactly dead straight. And when you get to the end of 20 feet or whatever it is you got to go, whatever is in that spot over there on the green sideways, that is the very blade of grass that your putter face aims at. If you're 6 feet to 10 feet away from a hole that's 4¼ inches in diameter, you can pick out about 10 different exact entry points with this kind of aiming. And you'll know whether your putter is aimed left edge, 1/4 inch inside left edge, dead center of the hole, right edge. There's 10 of those. And you can actually aim those with exact precision if you know how to arrange your eyeball so that it matches the aim of the face.
When the face is tilted up and the eyes are rolling down the cheeks,
right?
uh, does the aiming to the right come from the perception that the individual, be it a kid, a beginner, an adult, teenager, whatever?
No, it's kind of irrelevant because they don't actually find out where the putter face points. And so, if the putter face is pointed incorrectly to the right, and they do this little eyeballs aiming down the cheeks, and then they turn their head, and their line of vision actually swings way to the left,
Mm-hmm.
and then they go, well, I was looking for the hole, and then so they'll pop their head back to the right, the top of their head, the axis of their rotation at the where you would put your finger on the top of your head, that will swing back to the right, and then it will look at the hole, and that golfer, completely uneducated on what they're doing, will declare that their putter face points where they hoped it would. They never found out where it points.
So the head actually bends at the neck when they're out of position because they have to try to raise their head to see the hole.
Well, if you now you're talking about the skill of rotating your head like an apple on a stick.
Mm-hmm.
All right. If you point your eyes straight out that little magic spot 1 inch in from the bridge of your nose, and then you lower your face until that spot coincides with the line where the floor meets the wall, and then you put your finger on the top of your head and you spin as if that's a nail sticking out from a wall onto the top of your head.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to want to scratch underneath this nail head. You just spin under the nail, right?
That's right.
So physically, the other thing that's actually happening is that when your chest matches the wall, your head and neck, the line of your neck needs to match the heel toe line of a putter face or a putter head. Otherwise, you'll run your eyes straight sideways, but it won't be the same line that the putter points. You got to square up to the putter as aimed, then spin your head. All right. So when you do that, the chin is a certain distance from both shoulders. And when you spin your head like an apple on a stick, the chin will not come closer to the front shoulder and will not go further away from the front shoulder. So the neck will actually just stay like you aimed it over in relation to the putter face. It'll spin. The neck will spin. The head will spin. But nothing is curling forward or backwards. The neck's not turning the chin towards the left shoulder. The neck is not turning the chin farther from the left shoulder. One is the head goes towards the target. One is the head goes away from the target. That's not how you do that skill. So you also have to learn how to do the skill of spinning the head sideways.
I have always, from the reading I did, and you correct me if I'm wrong, that when the face was up too high, and the eyes rolled down the cheeks, that people, since they could stand erect, looked to your point, look straight out of their face, and throughout the history of mankind, it was the developed the ability to determine, okay, there's a saber-toothed tiger, and their ability to determine distance and how far things away got developed, looking straight out of their face. And then when there's a distortion, when the face is pointed one way and the eyes are the other, that they're not able to determine distance and, as you said, aim. Is that something that I'm way off on, or is that some?
Okay, I mean, we have to kind of unplug from putting sideways for a minute,
Uh-huh.
and just say, okay, there's a tiger over there 20 feet away, which is 1.5 leaps, and then he's got you.
Right.
So you got maybe 2 seconds to live. All right. So you're looking down at the ball, getting ready to putt it, and then all of a sudden you hear this tiger 20 feet away. He's got 1.5 leaps, and he's going to grab your throat and kill you. But you got a gun on your hip. What are you going to do? You're going to rivet your head and face right at the tiger, pull that gun out, and try to shoot him in the face and kill him because he's coming after you. Right?
That's right.
All right. Now, people who are trying to putt sideways if they swing their face at the hole and say, "Oh yeah, there it is," and then putt, they can sort of get okay at that. But what they're doing is they're not keeping up with their putter face. They're not putting where the putter face aims, and whatever they did for reading a curve in the start line that matches the curve, they just flushed it down the toilet and said, "Forget that." So people can get away with some of that as an adult. Kids can't do it for diddly squat, but some adults can kind of face the hole. But when they make their strokes, they're not watching the putter, and they don't know where the putter aims, and they're kind of knocking it sideways a little bit, and they're hoping that they're going to knock it towards the tiger, or whatever is the hole, whatever is the target. That's a pretty disorganized way of doing things. What you end up with is you never know from your setup where the stroke is going to send the ball. Your brain is kind of coming up with a plan B on throwing a rock at a tiger and trying to hit him in the face 20 feet away. That doesn't really work too well on the PGA Tour, where half a stroke a day is 2 strokes in a tournament. And from top to bottom in a tournament, there's 20 strokes. And from the middle of the field up to the winner is maybe 10 strokes. And so you would have finished 35th, but if you had 2 more strokes, you would have finished 20th.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so don't finish 35th all the time, because you don't know how to putt where the putter points. You don't know how to see where the putter aims. You don't know the relationship of your setup to where the stroke is going to send the ball. Quit. Stop that. Doesn't make sense. Hurting you $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 every tournament. So if you just think about stuff like that, you'll start to see it ain't all about, can I throw a rock at a tiger? You can't possibly throw a rock at a tiger when you're looking down at the ball.
No.
So, and when in fact, everybody, even without skill of knowing where a putter points, everybody looks from the ball to the target or the ball to the hole, and they might be all confused about which of those two they're doing, but they look over there anyway, sort of where the tiger is. And then when they look back at the ball and they make a stroke, God bless them. Let's hope. Let's get disciplined a little bit. Read it right. Every curve has a start line. There's only one start line for every curve. There's only one curve for every ball speed. Imagine the curve with the ball speed, and then the start line's not optional, and the stroke's not optional for line or pace. Now you do that over and over, and you like it, you're gonna have a lot more cuts and a lot more money and a lot more chances to win out of that top 20 that you habitually are lurking around. If lucky your day, your week, you could be up there like Lee Westwood.
Oh, he's on a roll, isn't he?
He putted pretty good. Justin Thomas didn't putt for diddly squat on the last day.
Mm-mm.
He was like -2 strokes lost on the greens that day. And Lee Westwood was like 1.8 strokes gained. So there was almost a 4-stroke swing between those two just on the greens that day, 4th round. And if Justin Thomas hadn't just beat the dickens out of Lee Westwood with his ball striking, it would have been a different outcome.
You had mentioned lining up the putter face to the center line, or was it the chin and the base of the neck?
Right.
That line through the middle of the face.
Right.
How does that? Is there a perspective change if that's if the back of the ball would be at that spot, which would be basically the center line of the body. If somebody wanted to play the ball further forward and that putter drifted left,
as long as you run a line on the ground sideways straight, and that line goes through the center of the sweet spot of the putter behind the ball and goes through the center of the ball. You don't have to be right over top of the ball. You can be behind the ball. you could actually be in front of the ball, so long as your chest is parallel and your neckline is parallel to the putter face aim.
Does looking from behind the ball in that instance, or behind the putter, because the putter's forward centered, does it give a closed perception, or does it give an open
No,
perception?
it's just geometry. It's not vision. It's not dominant eye. It's not visual acuity. It's none of that perspective stuff. It's just geometry. Make a 90 with your eyeballs, spin your head.
Mm-hmm.
That runs a straight line sideways. Set up to a putter so your chest is the same as the aim of the putter face and your neck is the same as the heel toe line on the putter face. Then that spinning of the head will run the same line as the putter. It's just geometry. It ain't got nothing to do with all this eye stuff that people are all mystified by. You
Yeah,
can
that
do it.
seems to be the thing.
Yeah, you can do it left-handed. You know, if you're a right-handed golfer, you can aim your eyeball straight out of your face, lower that face down to the sweet spot of the putter when your chest is the same as the aim of the putter. Turn your head apple on a stick to the right. You'll be looking in that magic spot, exactly where your putter points.
Would you say that eye and head position and able to aim the putter face correctly is the out of the four? If someone held a gun to your head and said you need to make a decision on which one is the most important, would you classify that as the most important thing to get somebody's?
No, not at all. Not at all. It's just completely missing from dumb golfers because their dumb teachers don't know anything. And I want to be just as offensive as I can because this is a game that's 500 years old and they've been writing instructions since 1870 and nobody's even thought to figure this out. There were some guys in the 50s that came up with a gimmick, but they didn't even understand what they were talking about. You don't have to have your eye over the ball, people. You got to have a 90 degree. So if you put your eye over the ball, but you don't make the back of your head flat, flat to what? Flat to the deck of the green. If you don't do that, you don't have a 90. So today, I mean, it's just geometry, people. All right. So let's just start at the basics, not try to optimize the four skills. Let's just say what sinks putts? What's the real deal bottom line? If you don't even do this, you're not going to sink your putt. All right. So here's that part. You predict the curve. Every curve has a start line. It's called a tangent at the beginning of the curve underneath the ball. All right. So a tangent is the direction of the curve at any point along the way from beginning to end. And however fat your points are, there might be 1,000 of them. Every separate point along the curve has its own tangent. The tangent is the headlights of a car that's driving that curve. As it turns to the left, the tangent starts curving to the left. It's pointing out in the woods somewhere as you go around the curve to the left. The tangent is always like that. If you had a circle and you drove around a circle, the tangent changes all the way around the circle. And the tangent is exactly perpendicular to a line from the point of the tangent back to the center of the circle. All right, so every curve is just different circles. How big is the radius of the circle? Okay, well, you talk about 1 inch of a curve. The curvature right there from one point to another point along the curve 1 inch away, it might represent a piece of a circle that's 4 inches in diameter or in radius. And then a milder curve is a little section of a circle that's maybe 1.5 feet in radius. So every little piece along a curve, irregular as it may be, is just tangents, depending on how much curvature it is at that particular point, how sharply it's curving. Sharp curving, small circles. Tangents always perpendicular to that little circle. Mild curvature, big circles. All right, so tangents are just geometry. Every curve has one tangent underneath the bottom of the ball, and that is the start line with the pace control that will follow that curve, and that's the only combination that actually will. Aim some other line, you have to change your pace. Change your pace, you have to change your start line. You pick the curve with one ball speed, a smart ball speed, a good ball speed, an effective ball speed, the one that you're familiar with doing by tempo and rhythm. Now there's only one plan A. Aim the start line that goes with that curve, putt that line for stroke control, 90 degrees off the putter face, and do the tempo and rhythm so that the pace control matches the same pace you used to read the curve to begin with. All right, it's kind of stupid. So let's just say you want to think a putt, but you don't know all this. You see a curve, okay? Nobody can stop with just seeing the curve. They got to see what start line goes into the curve, right?
Mm-hmm.
So PGA Tour players are basically saying, "Oh, it's all me. I'm so special that I can see the curves and I can start it into the curves and I can sometimes figure out the pace, how hard to hit it, stuff like that." Well, that's not really what you would want to do if you want to be a world beater with putter. But this is what they're actually doing. They're seeing a curve because they've been out there since they're 12. And they're playing the same greens all the time on the PGA Tour, else they cry like little babies and make complaints about it and try to get that course thrown off the road. But they get fairly good at seeing a curve, all right? And starting it into the beginning of the curve, they don't know about start lines. They don't know about tangents. They don't know about targets and all that stuff. So what they do is they just sort of point their putter somewhere and don't really care. It might be a cut stroke, might be a push stroke, might be a pull stroke, just whatever. They just fixate on this little curve on the ground. They try to start it into the curve, but then they haven't finished the soup yet because they still got to figure out what pace to hit the ball. All right, that's what they're actually doing. So the real physics of putting is you can predict the curve pretty good if you know how to put the right ball speed in there. But if you don't know, putt wherever the start line goes and putt with the same pace you used to see it, what you'll do is you'll just start it somehow into the line. You won't even actually point your putter face into the line. You'll point it to the right and pull it onto the line. And you don't really know how distance control works by tempo and rhythm because you don't know anything about the human body and the instinctive brain. So you're out there sweating bullets trying to figure out how hard to hit putts. That's what they do. They've been doing it for years and years. And so they're not near as good as they could be. Everybody on PGA Tour, with about one or two exceptions, is probably 20% underperforming. If you just grabbed them for an hour and they listened as if they expected to learn and improve instead of listened as if they were suffering a poor person to tell them a gimmick. They got to actually want to learn and know that they don't know what they're doing. You know who calls you up in that situation? Great ball strikers that can't win and are finally desperate.
Mm-hmm.
They'll listen to you. And what you can do for them is you can take them from 135th on tour in putting stats for the last 5 years and instantaneously in one lesson jump them all the way up to the top 20 in putting stats. One lesson. Done it repeatedly. And that's just a measure of how far off these guys are on the PGA Tour, not knowing what they're doing. Their coaches don't know anything ever. Not when they're in high school, not when they're at Division I college, not when they're out on PGA Tour. Their caddy doesn't know. Their peers on the putting green don't know. The few guys that they pal around with don't know. None of the coaches, the swing coaches, know any of this. And so they'll go for years and years without learning how to putt. And they'll say, well, I did really good last week. And then the next week, they're really terrible. If you look back at the TPC for Morikawa, for example, he had one day where he was 3 strokes gained in putting. And then he had another day where he was -3 strokes lost in putting. All right, so that kind of seesawing and coming and going is a clear indicator that he doesn't know what he's doing. Yeah, these guys are pretty good after about 15 years of doing the same thing. So Morikawa was what, 22, 23, something
Mm-hmm.
like that. And so he started golf when he was 10. All right, so he's had 14 years of doing the same thing, probably 5 hours a day for 5 days a week for 14 years.
Do you see the inability, even at the tour level, for people to understand that basic concept of aiming the club face or the putter face correctly as
Well,
being a
there's a
genesis to
there's a
all the
kind of a
crazy
different
grips?
there's a different problem, which is A, they all believe it's the putter. B, they don't believe it's the putter, they believe it's them, personal thoroughbreds and all this kind of DNA crap. Then they think that it's a gimmick, like a claw grip or a clasp of putter against your arm. Then they think it's a gimmick like aim point. Then they think it's really just them. And then they think that if it used to be a gimmick that stopped working, then it should have been them instead of the gimmick, so they'll just go look for a different gimmick. So these guys that fiddle with their putters, and these guys that change their grips, and these guys that take up gimmicks to help them figure out the four skills, and they're only hearing about one of the skills. The aim point is not four skills; it's a gimmick to get you a start line, and it's not even a good gimmick to get you a good start line. But at any rate, they think that that's putting instruction. All right, now I'm not going to say they're just complete idiots. They are pretty unable to think logically. I mean, I can't really say they're very logical. So what it is it's all this narcissism, and this they don't know what's better than what they're doing. And if something they're doing doesn't work, they think it's just a tweak, a little tweak. And you read this repeatedly in their little after action interviews where they said, "Oh yeah, some guy showed me a little tweak last week, and yeah, it really worked." I mean, it works for about 2 weeks, and then they're not good again. So building actual skills on an integrated and a logical basis, and on the basis of what the body actually is doing instinctively and by anatomical movements, that's what they have no clue whatsoever about. If you teach a PGA Tour player and they go way off the charts for cuts made, extra money, 3 or 4 times their money over last year, and holding every 30 footer or holding bunches of 30 footers they never hold in their lives, and lag putting like a monster, and never having a three putt for years, and all that stuff. And then they go take another lesson from somebody that tells them to twist the body around and get rid of degrees of freedom, and it totally derails them. The thought of going back to what they were doing when they were just killing their putting like nobody's business does not occur to these people. I've seen this over and over and over. The big example is Steve Elkington. Another example is Ben Parker. Ben Parker was an 18-year-old kid whose father was a 40-year veteran teacher in Europe. He was an expat from England living in Hamburg. And Ben Parker, at 17, 18 years old, grew up on golf courses with his daddy teaching full swing all day. And he got on the English national golf team, and he played, international tournaments against Germany and Switzerland, Sweden. And he was good, except he couldn't putt. That's because swing teachers don't know anything about putting. It's four skills. You got to teach them how they operate in the body with neuroscience and anatomy, and you got to integrate the four, and you got to explain to the golfer so you know cause and effect, and then they got to work on that. But no swing coach in the history of the world has ever been any good teaching putting until they took a lesson from the putting thing. So his daddy couldn't help him, but there were four other expats teaching in Hamburg that knew me and were certified, and they told him, you need to talk to me. So he calls me over to his golf course to teach his son. I taught him one lesson. Within a month, his son was invited to the Orange Bowl Junior Invitational in Miami against the top juniors in the world. And he teed off. He shot I think it was a 63 on Thursday, and everybody else is shooting 67th at most. So he took a 4-shot lead right off the first tee on the first day. The second day he shot a 67, and everybody else shot a 67. So he's got a 4-stroke lead going into the weekend, and he just pars his way out and wins the tournament. He got invited to the Tasmanian Open in Australia against adults, and on the Thursday tee box he shot a 62.
Jeez.
And then he cakewalked that victory. And then he went to England to see a guy that does Zen Oracle that thinks he knows something about putting. And he put him on a Sam Putt lab, and he said, Mangum's stuff is not scientific. And so he convinced him to do something else. And then because he won the Tasmanian Open, Ben Parker had been invited at 18 years old to play the Australian Masters as an amateur. And he went out and shot 2 rounds of 81 and was never heard from again. Now, I mean, he was never heard from again. He never played professional golf again. His career was knifed in the heart. I saw him living in South Miami one time, hitting balls on the range, trying to get in some mini tours in Florida, and that didn't work out. He tried some stuff on the European Challenge Tour, and that didn't work out. He's never been heard from again. All right, so this Zen Oracle guy in Sheffield, England, completely ruined his life. Now, what does his daddy say? He said that my stuff didn't work. All right, so the guys in Hamburg that had told him to come see me to begin with looked at him with complete stupefaction washing over their faces and said, "Are you crazy? The reason it didn't work was because you quit doing it."
No kidding.
Yeah. And Elkington did the same thing after he had a year's worth of wild success in 2010. He took the extra money and went around and started taking lessons like a little magpie, and with the attitude that he's a thoroughbred and nobody teaching a bad lesson could possibly hurt him. And so he took lessons from a jackleg out in Australia and a jackleg up in Oregon, don't know anything about putting skills. And it completely ruined his next year. He missed 3 cuts in a row right out of the gate. And I went and found him at Hilton Head in the 4th term of the year. And I said, "What in the hell are you doing?" He said, "Well, I'm twisting my arms around and taking a degree of freedom out. I'm doing this and that." And I said, "Well, why come you're not doing what I taught you and gave you 4 times the money?" He said, I said, "You want me to resurrect your career here before you completely tube this year?" And he said, "Well, okay." And so I walked around with him for 7 days, Monday through Sunday. And I kept reminding him, do your pace, read it right, aim the start line, put where you aim. No problem. Just do that and forget all this crap all we've been trying. And he was 3rd that week in putting stats. He missed 3 cuts with bad putting. Couldn't push a poker chip off a table with putting. And then he's 3rd in the field. The winner that year is 2011 was Brant Snedeker. And he was 1st in putting. And the 2nd in putting was Kevin Na, who's always a great putter until recently. And then 3rd was Steve Elkington. And so I resurrected his putting again. And then he still didn't do it. And he had to quit the 2011 year at age 48 or 49. He wasn't really eligible for the senior tour. But he had to quit the PGA Tour because he just didn't have a lick of sense. Then when he finally got 50 and went on the senior tour, he was the worst of all the geezers on easier to putt greens on the senior tour where there's no cut. He was the worst putter of all the people on the senior tour. And that's pretty hard to do with me standing around the corner wanting to teach him. But that's what he did. All right, so these guys are completely narcissistic and stupid. And I hate to say the word stupid, but they're giving up millions and millions of dollars because they think it's them and not good technique and not good teaching. Now, if you said that to Tiger Woods, he'd have fired you on the spot. Well, guess what? I don't care. You know, you want to be a stupid, dumbass son of a bitch, hire a swing coach to teach you putting. Jordan Spieth, talk to Cameron, whatever you want to do. But don't waste my time if you think it's all you and there's nothing that would change your putting and up your game by 20% or more.
Do
You don't
you
want
think
that.
20% would be the norm?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. They're so unorganized, it's pitiful. Slump knock you out of 3 or 4 weeks of putting. You're only going to play 25 weeks, so 1/8 of your year is out. You didn't even, and you don't make cuts. If you lose 3 weeks with a slump, and you got, well, the really top players, they don't play 25. The grinders play 25 to kind of make all their FedEx points so they can keep their card. But the really top players, they try to get by playing 16. Well, 3 of them are gone. You got 13 more. How many cuts you going to miss? 5. All right, so there's 8 of them gone. So your year's already cut in half before you can tee it up on the remaining 8 tournaments. Now, unless you win them, 2 or 3 of them, you're not going to make all that much money by missing half of the tournaments. So ball speed control will double cuts made just learning that one skill, learning how to do it so you don't have slumps, learning what counts. All right, so you asked the question, what's the number one skill? The number one skill is not aiming. That's just mechanical, and they just don't know how to do it. The number one skill is distance control, because that's the foundation of reading putts to begin with. And if it's integrated when you aim and shoot, but you do the same distance control and you just start it into the start line, success. You comply with the physics of the curve. So they don't know distance control. Sort of good at it, but you know, if you watch somebody that I've taught and then I hadn't taught him for a big long time, they start 3-putting from 30, 50 feet out. There's a general rule that I don't think they know that I've never heard them indicate that they know it. The general miss is about, if you're talking about 20, 30, and 40 and 50 and 60 foot putts, the general miss on the PGA Tour is very frequently 10%. And it should be 2 to 3 feet, no matter what the distance is. 2 to 3 feet miss on a 60 footer, 2 to 3 miss on a 50 footer. But they're missing 10% all the time. And that means they miss 5 foot on a 50 foot putt and they miss 6 foot on a 60 foot putt. You miss 6 feet on a 60 foot lag putt, you basically don't know how to lag. And if they think they're missing 6 feet on a 60 foot putt and they think that's good, they're just bug out crazy. I got women that can do better than that.
Do you think that's a face aim control or a
no, they
distance
just don't
control?
know how to lag. That's a skill. They don't know how to do the distance control. They don't know how to operate the body for distance control. And they don't really know how to aim to the high side either.
You know, when we spent that 3 or 4 days together,
right.
We went over that quite a bit, where the distance control, once you're an adult, grown, if you're walking, right, you're swinging your arms 10,000 times a day. That you
got 2 legs, 2 arms, you're swinging 4 things.
Yeah.
Thousands of times.
Yep.
Nobody knows the exact number, but it's thousands every day.
And it's an innate cadence or tempo that's dialed in. Is it when somebody goes against what that natural cadence is that they get in these haywire things and can't do it?
Bullets that don't fit their gun.
Right.
There's one tempo that's extremely educated about complying with the physics of the world when you move your arms around toward doorknobs and glasses of water. There's one tempo that's extremely good at that, and it's the natural tempo. And when people are taught by Sam Putt Lab, the Zen Oracle idiot, how to do things, you know, bada bing, bada boom, short back, fast through, and crap like that, you're just putting 22s in your 38.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of stupid. But, it's just they don't know, they don't study, they have never cracked a book. I mean, it's just golf. Golf is like very amateurish and non-scientific, and people sitting on toilets designing putters and training aids, coming up with technologies. Paul Heron doesn't know anything at all about putting, and he designs quintic ball roll and he writes papers and all this. He doesn't. If he hasn't learned it from me, he hasn't learned it, and he might have learned stuff from me because I'm so rancorous about you dumbasses need to quit hurting golfers. And so eventually they'll take a peek, and then they'll start trying to teach body action. Yeah.
Right.
Read the book before you do that, boys.
For
I got
someone
30 years of body action.
For someone that's listening and they're really struggling with distance control, let's say they
Right.
at 25 to 30 feet, they're having a hard time getting it within 5 feet of the hole. What would be probably the best piece of advice that you would give them to help them dial that in?
Here's how it actually works, and then I'll tell you quick drills. It's monkey cow. Monkey is attentive to everything that matters, to jumping from A to B. If a monkey's going to jump from one branch to another, he's not going to miss it, because if he misses it, he's going to fall 50 feet down, break his back, and the jaguar eats. So he's attentive. And what matters in putting is green speed, distance, and any uphill, downhill, extra or negative energy you got to add in because there's uphill or downhill. All right, slow greens, more energy. Fast greens, less energy. Longer putts, more energy. Shorter putts, less energy. So there's like an energy level that matches the physics of what matters: distance, green speed, and uphill, downhill. All right, it's not that hard to figure it out. There's a certain energy to swing your hand towards the doorknob. Where is it? How far is it? How much does my arm weigh? How much energy of the muscle action is going to send it over there without smacking my thumb against it and breaking my hand? Instincts got that sorted out by the time you're 5 or 6 years old.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so it's pattern recognition. Golf putting doesn't take a whole lot of education. It just says, do you know anything about the difference between a green speed stimp 8 and a green speed stimp 10? And you say, no. You say, well, let's just do a couple of things. The cow part is that once you have instinctively energized your muscle action in advance of the stroke, the muscle action will only make a certain size of stroke. And that's the backstroke. That size will be calibrated by your instincts based on what tempo and rhythm you're going to use. And if you're using the natural tempo and rhythm, which is bada bing, bada boom, both ways the same, bada bing, bada boom, and both ways the same quickness. The tempo is the quickness. It's nice and casual. Swing your arm, swing your arm. Okay, that's like the motion that your body has learned through all these thousands of times a day. All right, so if you use that tempo and rhythm, there's only one size that matches the physics of putt for distance. And your body actually knows how to calibrate the muscle in advance of pulling the trigger on how much energy or vigor the backstroke will have, and therefore how big it will be. If you make different size strokes, the tempo and the rhythm of the pendulum action of the swing never changes. What changes is the different sizes that match what matters. A bigger size changes the impact velocity at the bottom of the pendulum swing, faster, harder. A smaller size has a softer, less energetic impact velocity. Your brain knows all that by thousands of times a day how to swing your arms. So here are the drills. You walk out onto a green, you plop down 3 golf balls on a fairly level piece of green, and you pick one size. But before you pick the size, you stabilize your back and through swinging to nowhere in particular. Bada bing, bada boom, bada bing, bada boom. And then you artificially pick a size. Let's say 10 inches past your back foot. Bada bing, bada boom. And you hit a ball. The impact velocity is set by the size that you arbitrarily picked. And that ball will go some distance based on the green speed and then uphill, downhill. You don't know the distance until you hit the ball. Then you rake the second ball over and you do the same bada bing, bada boom with the same size the second time. And in physics, you'll get exactly the same impact velocity. And the ball will go exactly the same distance and go over there and kiss the first one. And then you rake the third ball over and you go bada bing, bada boom. And then you do 10 feet past the back foot, bada bing, bada boom. Impact velocity matches the first two. Third ball goes over and kisses the first two. All three balls go the same distance. Now you know what distance they go on that green speed. And you say, aha. And that calibrates your personal tempo and rhythm. And that one size is now calibrated to the green speed. And you just eat it like a cinnamon cookie to see how much cinnamon is in the green that day. You look at it and you say, oh, that's how fast the green is. Anytime I go bada bing, bada boom without a whole lot of uphill, downhill, it's going to go about that far. And so the second thing you do, I call that the core putt. You have a certain distance backswing and you carry it to any green, any golf course, any different day, any different green speed, and you're going to find out how you relate or register your tempo to that green speed. All right. The second thing you do is I call it rabbit and hound. I created the core putt. Rabbit and hound I didn't really create. That's Tom Watson used to do that, and so did Bobby Lott. Basically, they'll send the ball out about 30 feet, and then they'll try to size that putt to go over and kiss that rabbit ball. All right, that doesn't work if your tempo and rhythm is not stabilized when you're looking at the rabbit. So before you even try that, you need to just sit there and swing to nowhere in particular. Bada bing, bada boom. No size in particular, just bada bing, bada boom. And then you make the monkey intentionality of going over to the rabbit ball and kissing it. Last two rolls, come up to that ball and nudge it. And then you go, let's see how my instincts are on getting the screen speed right now that I just did the core putt. And you go bada bing, bada boom, and a size instinctively happens from your monkey intentionality. And then the size of your cow swing, don't care, just do two tempos nice and casually. It goes over there and kisses the rabbit. Your dog ball goes over and kisses the rabbit. That tells you that you're pretty good on sizing. The core putt tells you you're pretty good on stabilizing your tempo and rhythm. The rabbit and hound tells you that you're pretty good on sizing with the stabilized tempo and rhythm. Then you can do some other things like putt significantly uphill and then putt downhill, see if you can get that part factored in. Distance, green speed, and uphill, downhill is all that matters. So if you're paying attention like a monkey to where's the target, slightly behind the hole, not short of the hole, not crazy past the hole, and you're paying attention to what matters in terms of it is what it is, whatever it is, bring it on. Green speed, distance, uphill, downhill, then your monkey instinctively sizes the stroke for you, and you don't have any thought whatsoever on whether this stroke is going to be right or wrong. It's already pre-loaded with the right gas to go to the right size, and it can't possibly be too big. So you do bada bing, bada boom, and you fully load, and you fully spin, and it's right. All right, so that takes a little while to say out loud, and to teach it in a putting lesson might take an hour or hour and a half. But children can putt better for distance control the rest of their lives if they know that. And so can women. And so can professional golfers if they would just want to hear it instead of it's me, and my special fingers and blah, blah, blah. The hard ones to teach are the ones that already think they're special and that you're just peddling tips. No, I'm peddling something they've never heard in their lives that would revolutionize their success level. Cuts made, money made, wins made. Most people that adhere to this one lesson on distance control on professional level, that triples or quadruples their money.
When you were on
And it's
last,
already up there. Huh?
when you were on last, we talked about tempo and
Right.
the speed of that tempo. And Lauren Roberts, I think you said, was the closest to
Right.
1 second on the
Yeah. Well,
backstroke.
if you say what does the arm and a putter actually take, how much time from top to top,
Mm-hmm.
it's real simple to find out. Just take a putter, lift it into a backswing, maybe get a little elevation on it, maybe 20 inches back from the ball or 40 inches back from the ball, something like that. Who knows? Um, 20, 30 inches back from the ball. And then you're bending over from your torso. So if you just relax and let the putter swing naturally, your arms and the putter will swing as a unit in gravity, and they'll take a certain amount of time to get to the other top, like a trapeze going from top to top. The tempo is the swinging character of the swing, how it's accelerating through impact, and then it's coasting up to the other side, just like a trapeze person coasting to the other side. Well, if you want to put a number on it, you need to know how long it takes to get to the other side. And most people takes a pretty close to a minute. A minute is, I mean, not a minute, a second. So a second is divided into 1,000 parts called milliseconds. So 1,000 milliseconds would be exactly 1.0 seconds. They, most PGA Tour guys are backswing 750 milliseconds, 3/4 of a second. Lauren Roberts, they put him on a Sam Putt lab up in Illinois, and he came out 950 milliseconds. And the conclusion of the Sam Putt lab gurus was, that's bizarre. Nobody does that. And Lauren Roberts, he whips all these guys for putting. He's one of the perennial greats of all time. And, you know, they're not but two or three guys that are actually rated that got good and stayed good and don't come and go in their putting the way everybody else does. In a 20-year period, I've studied the putting stats for every PGA Tour player that got on tour and putted from 1986 to 2006, a 20-year period. There were 2,000 different players in that time period. Some of them didn't stay on the tour very long. But if you looked at all their stats and you gave one simple criteria, who got good on tour, and after they got good, who stayed good, and you gave them points for getting in the top 10 and putting and staying in the top 10 next year, and you didn't give them points if they fell down to 70th in putting, something like that, and you gave little points out to 2,000 different golfers, you'll find out the elite on PGA Tour is no more than about 10 guys in 2020 years. So anytime on the 200 guys on PGA Tour right this minute, there ain't but one or two of them at most that got good and stayed good, and everybody else coming and going like the wind.
Who would be a couple of those guys? Would you know them off the top of your head?
Well, it was Steve Stricker until about 2 years ago, but now he's fallen off the perch. We'll see about Denny McCarthy. He's a University of Virginia golfer that is self-taught. It used to be people like Payne Stewart, Ben Crenshaw, Glenn Day used to be one, and then all of a sudden he lost his putting and couldn't get back on tour. Mickelson used to be, but he's not. He hadn't been good at putting for about 3 years now. He really wasn't in the top tier. He was briefly among the elites for a while, and then he wasn't. Brad Faxon, he's not. He comes and goes like the wind. One year he'll have a good putting year and a bad ball striking year. Then the next year he'll have a good ball striking year, lots of greens in regulation, and his putting will go off the rails. So he doesn't know. The top guy of all that group that got good and stayed good better than anybody else was Payne Stewart. He nudged out Ben Crenshaw. Ben Crenshaw one time went 365 holes without a 3-putt.
Wow.
So it's 20 rounds of golf.
And do you know what it was that Stewart did to improve his putting and then get to that elite category?
Not really. I mean, I've actually given his coach Chuck Cook a lesson, and Chuck didn't know anything about it.
Huh.
He's he was kind of overly mechanical, except he forgot his mechanics all the time. And his wife Tracy, when he sank that 20-footer at the Pinehurst 1999 U.S. Open to beat Phil Mickelson,
right?
I was trying to find somebody to bet with while he was lining up his 20-footer because I knew he was going to make it. But his wife on Saturday watched him and told him between Saturday and Sunday, "You're moving your head when you putt. You need to stop that." So
maybe you should put her in the putting zone.
Well, I mean, she'd have to pay. I teach where his caddy Mike Hicks lives in Graham, North Carolina. I've never met him, but he wasn't the source of Payne Stewart's success. Payne Stewart he was a grinder. He was really a grinder, but he had that carefree attitude like we saw in Lee Westwood last week. That's a real man playing golf. That's not a boy working with swing coaches and golf sacks, physiotherapy people, and putter fitters, and blah, 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 all around him all day long. The main thing about guys that got good and stayed good, they didn't do all that fiddling around with their putting. They got something basic going. Probably could have been better, but they got something basic going. And a lot of them got really good tempo and rhythm. One of the great guys on tour in the modern era is Bob Heintz. He was a roly-poly Yale golfer that couldn't hit a green in regulation to save his soul. But he was a dream putter. And he had a real nice, relaxed tempo. And he had his wrists were fanning like crazy in the stroke. He was swatting them. But with that tempo and that disposition not to hurry, when he was reading putts, he was reading with his stabilized tempo. And so he had better reads than a lot of people. And he could get it so close on 30-footers, he netted in more of those than most people. But Brad Faxon, David Toms, and one other guy, I think it was David Frost, they all tied for putts per green regulation at 1.704. And some guy in 2010 or so named Noah Leibman wrote a history book called The History of the Flat Stick. And he declared Brad Faxon the queen of the ball and didn't even mention David Toms or David Frost. Well, he's writing a book on the history of the flat stick, and he's supposedly citing statistics. So where's Bob Heintz? He didn't mention Bob Heintz. So this is like a really ridiculous book by Noah Leibman, because if you looked at the statistics, and I think it was 2000, Bob Heintz had 1.682 putts per green regulation. That's 28% better than Brad Faxon in his wettest dream. And Noah Leibman, writing The History of the Flat Stick, was completely unaware of this. That's pretty bad.
Yeah, how do you miss that? It's not like
Well, see, that's golf. Golf is stupid, amateur, kind of give a shot at it, and as long as people don't catch you making a mess, it sells. He said it was the statistics, and nobody got sense enough in golf to check. I read it and I thought, man, this guy's a complete idiot. Bob Heintz is way better than Brad Faxon. And since he couldn't hit a green regulation worth a hoot, Bob Heintz is putting from what we call bum duck Egypt. he's nutting them in from way out. And you know who else was like that? It was Bobby Locke. There's a great story where Bobby Locke came to the United States and won 11 out of however many tournaments he entered, 10 something. He won half of the money on the PGA Tour in 1946 or something, pissed everybody off. So they opposed him coming back. The main nemesis was Mike Hill or Dave Hill, and they were just nasty to Bobby Locke. So he just went and played in Europe and won 4 British Opens. But Bobby Locke was playing Ben Crenshaw in Reading, Pennsylvania. I mean, not Ben Crenshaw, playing Ben Hogan in Reading, Pennsylvania. And Hogan said, "I'm the greatest ball striker in the world," and I just stuck it to 8 feet. And that Bobby Locke, Carn Sarnit, he stuck it to 35, so he got to go first. He sank his birdie putt. Pissed me off so much that he missed his 8-footer. And Bobby Locke, that was like the 14th hole or something. So Bobby Locke played the next 5 holes and pipped him, beat him, just pissed him off. So ball strikers are always getting pissed off at people that can putt from downtown. Arnold Palmer used to get pissed off that Billy Casper beat him at the U.S. Open.
Mm-hmm. What was the little guy that beat Snead? Paul Runyon. Beat Snead in the match play.
Yeah. So, great ball strikers, they think they own the whole golf course. And, of course, everybody in golf tells them that's true. Ball striking is all that matters. And then somebody that can putt comes out there and upsets their apple cart and pisses them off, and they start crying.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Gene Sarazen, he used to be one of those crying little ball strikers that got beat every now and then by somebody who could putt. He insisted that they try making the hole 8 inches wide so that he would not get hurt by a ball striker. Well, I mean, by a putter, a superior putter. So they actually tried it, and it didn't make any difference.
No, because the other guys are still going to outputt him.
Well, yeah, but he thought it was going to be different because he made a hole 8 inches wide.
Mm.
So, people have funny ideas on what's going on with putting, and they always have because they're uneducated.
What do you think? Go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Go ahead. I'm finished. I'll stop.
That's good. What do you think of what DeChambeau's doing? Because he's improved, it seems like, every year with his putting.
Well, I'd have to look a little more carefully. If you look at Brandt Snedeker, he's not really good inside 5 feet. Look it up. So you got to do a reality check on all these guys. His swing coach was a guy named Mike Shy out in California.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Shy used to be a student of my stuff, so Lord knows what Bryson has heard from Mike Shy. I don't know. They don't invite me to the dance. I couldn't tell you. Bryson has got this crazy stiff arm setup where he's swinging his arms. Like I told you, if you can read it well and you can hit the ball into the curve with the right pace, you're going to succeed a lot. All right, so where it comes up and shows its utility is you start to make a lot of long putts that everybody else is missing. If you can lag to 2 feet by knowing how to do it, and you do that consistently, you're going to get lucky 5 to 10 times more than people that don't know how to do that. You're going to be within 2 feet, lots and lots, and some of those are going to trickle in. And so DeChambeau is pretty good from distance.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's all that good from in short because he doesn't exactly know how to do the whole package in short. Adam Scott, he took aim point, and he had a pretty good year putting in 2014, which was like 7 years ago. And then the other 6 years, he sucked out the butt on 10-foot putting. Bad. But he was great from 25 feet and out. So, some people have so-called touch because they've been playing golf ever since they're 10. And as long as they can stick to that, they don't even actually have to be taught so much as long as they're better than the competition for 30 and 40-foot putts. So Adam Scott was pretty good from downtown, but he wasn't any good at all within 10 feet. And that's why he went off the rails as the star he could have been. Now, to give the dog his due, I don't know what he's done, but he's better inside 10 feet now than he's ever been in a long time. I was talking to his daddy in Orlando last year in January, and we talked for about 2 hours, like what might be his problem. And I said, look, I'm not going to try to say bad things about other people, but I ain't pointing it worth a damn. You know, he's probably not able to read inside 10 feet very well with his fingers. If you back off to 20 and 30 feet, you shouldn't be using your fingers at all, because finger aiming only works as long as there's no other slope than one. And when you get to outside 10 feet, there's almost always more than one slope on the way into the hole. So if anybody's teaching aim point on more than one slope, stop it. It ain't how that works. But at any rate, let's just say that he's out there pointing his finger from 30 feet away. He's not going to be that far off, because a long line like that, your finger is out in front of your face. It's not that big of a mistake. And if you're not really organized to put it where you aim anyway, you're going to get in tighter. But if you get inside a 10-footer and make a little half a finger mistake with your finger aiming, that's way outside the hole. That's a big error. So his finger pointing probably is way overrated. It's not accurate, and it's especially not good inside 10 feet, especially if you don't know how thick your finger is or where exactly how many inches to hold it from your eye. You're not making the right angle anyway. And besides, that all angle stuff is based on certain green speed. And the way they teach aim point, they teach you to change where you hold your finger away from your eye to sort of guesstimate where it ought to be if it's a faster green. All that's like crazy bad, and it's all the error is accentuated inside 10 feet. And you're not supposed to be using it out for 20 feet, but the errors are minimized out when a long line like 20 or 30 foot putt. So maybe Adam Scott's got something else going on inside 10 feet these days. Maybe he's actually got off his butt and Googled it to try to learn something he hadn't learned in the last 10 years or so.
You know, I thought that the long putter helped him, not so much in that it was anchored or anything
Well,
else.
like we said, you know, if you can just start it where you think the curve goes.
Well, yeah, that's where I thought it helped to where he had his face pointed straight down at the ball when he had that longer putter. When he basically put it under his chin and he was looking straight down, so that his ability to line the putter up face up where he thought it was correct.
You're talking about, you know, fuzzy vision stuff, which aiming the putter from beside the ball is just basically see where the putter aims. Is it what you wanted it to do? Now putt straight, dummy. And you're kind of mystifying it with hoodoo vision stuff that's not really applicable.
No, I'm not saying his vision. I'm saying that the way that he looked, or that he directed his head when he had the long putter, was where his the line from his ear through the corner of his eye was at the ball.
No, he wasn't doing that.
Because
we can go get some videos of him and see if he's doing that, but I don't think so.
Because I remember watching him when he first that year in January when they went to the short putter, or the anchor band kicked in January of, what was it, 17 or 18, and he had he was playing Australian Masters, Australian Open. And he had it about 3.5 feet on the first hole for.
What was the back of his head flat?
No, his whole chest and head, and his face was pointed 4 feet outside the what would be the ball line, and he missed the hole from 3.5 feet.
Well, that's you know, that's where you don't know where your putter face is pointing from the side of the ball. If he had pointed the line on the ball and just quit and then set up and putted the line on the ball, he'd probably had more success, but he doesn't know that. He's thinking he's beside the ball. He's got to look, see where the tiger's face is. That ain't working right.
So, in your opinion,
tiger grid.
Is having a line on the ball beneficial to most of the golfers out there?
Yeah, but it's also beneficial not to mess it up when you get beside the ball.
To change.
Yeah, that's what they're. You know, they got a pull stroke, if you aim the line on the ball, you're going to get a bad feeling in your body looking down at the line on the ball saying, God, that looks like it's going left.
Mm-hmm.
You know where that comes from?
From being aimed out to the right all the time.
No, you aim the line on the ball just perfect.
Mm-hmm.
You got a laser that checked it, and your coach checked it, and the line on the ball's right. But you set up beside it, and you look down at it, and you say, that looks like it's going left. All right, where does that come from? Nobody in golf knows the answer because I discovered it in neuroscience. There's a whole other aiming system called where's your shot usually go? If you have a pull stroke and you look down at a perfectly aimed line on the ball, it will look like it's going left because it will go left. And your body stroke, your movement habit is telling a little last minute report to your mind, hey, just in case you're interested, that's not going to go where the line is pointed because you got a pull stroke. It's going to the left. So it's not that it looks like it's going left. It is going left because you have a pull stroke. All right. Now, what this means is you don't putt where you point your putter face. They never do. 95% of all golfers pull stroke. So they use the line on the ball. Doesn't help. Looks wrong. Makes them feel uncomfortable. Confuses their feel. All right. Now, Tiger Woods directly attacked that and said, okay, well, whatever. Commit to that line. Don't re-aim from beside the ball. Commit to the line on the ball and putt that way.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, he's got all kinds of other junk he's doing, like rotating his face 7 degrees open and 12 degrees closed. He's pointing it to the outside, and he hits it 0.9 degrees to the inside closed. You know, all kinds of junk like that. He's not near as good as he could be, and hadn't been since 2005. So, you know, how many years is that he's not done great putting that he could have done? 15.
Yeah, he really struggled there when he, 2018 when he came back.
Yeah, he struggled when he lost the Masters to Phil Mickelson. He had 40 putts.
Right.
That's because his daddy died.
Mm-hmm.
And his daddy wouldn't let any other swing coach teach him putting. And only daddy teaches Tiger putting. And there's only like 2 or 3 little gimmicks that his daddy ever taught putting. One was putt to the picture, whatever the heck that's supposed to mean. But, you know, Tiger is very uneducated about how putting actually works in the body. These guys have been playing since they're 3, 4, 5 years old. They think they know stuff, but they don't. They don't ever think logically, well, how does reading relate to distance control? You read with pace control in your movie, in your head, when you imagine the curve and predict the curve. That they don't know. They can't say that sentence. All right, so how does curve have a start line that's not optional? They don't know it's not optional. They just think you kind of knock it around the curve a little bit. Never heard of how Stuart Sink aims a putter?
Something about he aims to the highest point of the break.
He aims to the apex.
Apex,
okay.
That's it.
All right. Now, hey, dumb boy, you are an engineering grad from Georgia Tech. Tell me, what's the definition of apex? And you just had one. What's your definition of apex?
Me?
Yeah, you just said it. It was right.
The
widest point of separation.
Yes, but the highest point from a straight line to the hole to where the
right.
Right.
Exactly. That's because you've been in the putting zone.
Mm-hmm.
Stuart Sink can't say that sentence. He doesn't know it. All right, so he thinks that the apex is something, you know, and he says he putts to the apex. All right, now what does he mean by the word to? Does he mean he points his putter at the apex? No, and he doesn't know that. But he explains things in his way. It's all wrong. He says he putts to the apex and then lets the hill take it the rest of the way downhill through the hole. Okay, that's like 3 things that are wrong all at once. Seriously, I'm just telling you how bad this logic is. Lots of putts don't have any downhill the rest of the way to the hole from the apex. If you're like at a 4 o'clock position where the fall line is 612,
Mm-hmm.
there ain't no downhill the rest of the way to the hole from a 4 o'clock putt. It's uphill all the way. So what's he smoking? All right, so what does he say when he puts to the apex? Does he aim at the apex and put straight where he aims? No, that would never work. Why? Because as the ball progresses along a curve, its tangents keep changing from away from the hole back towards the hole. Now, somewhere from putting away from the hole to the high side, where the tangents are changing steadily and then eventually they're pointing center cut at the hole, there's some point up there where the tangents are exactly not going away and not going towards the hole. And that means the tangent at the apex is exactly parallel to the straight line from the ball to the hole. All right. So the definition of an apex is not just the widest point of separation of the curve from the baseline, straight from ball to hole. It is also the point where the tangent is parallel to the baseline. All right. Now, if that tangent is rotating from too high to parallel to the baseline, now aiming down towards the hole, or at the hole, not down, but at the hole, that's like you're twisting for a right to left putt. You're twisting the little dial on the tangents from to the right parallel and then to the left to the hole. All right. So if you aim at an apex and that's your start line tangent, you're going to be missing the apex low side
Every
by the time
time.
you get there. Every time.
Yep.
So the apex is never high enough aim. You cannot ever aim at an apex and call it good. The only way you can do that is if you speed up your pace to some plan B pace that goes faster and has less break in it. All right. So aiming or putting, quote, to, quote, the apex, Stuart Sink does not know what that means. What it actually means is he puts over the apex by aiming higher than the apex at his start line at the ball. Now, how much higher? He doesn't know that. But if you just said, okay, I'm going to put a T-peg out there 3 feet back from the hole on a 12-foot putt, and if the curve goes to the right of that T-peg on the right to left break, some players can actually put over that T-peg so that it has the right pace and it curves down and goes in the hole. Maybe you put a T-gate out there that's like 3 inches wide,
Mm-hmm.
and you say, put it through the T-gate. That's putting over an apex if you locate the T-peg right where the apex is. One T-peg on the, it's a right to left putt. One T-peg on the left would be on the apex or a little bit further lower than that. And then the second T-peg would be 3 inches to the right. Now, if you can curl your ball through that apex area, that's what Stuart Sink should be saying that he's doing when he puts to the apex. He puts over the apex, not to it, not at it.
I've used that often with students when teaching green reading, because a lot of them will come out and I'll say, I'll ask them where they think the highest point of the break is. And they'll
Right.
let's say they pick a spot 2 feet up from
Right.
the straight line. And I'll
Right.
say, okay, is that your highest point? And they say, okay, yeah, that's great. And their very first putt is low of the hole. And they look at it and they don't have any explanation. I'm just sitting there laughing in my head and saying, okay. And then I'll mark it, as you said, with a T where they think
Right.
the apex is. And then I'll say, okay, is there any break between your ball and that apex? And they say, yeah. And I say, where? And then we trace it all the way back, as you said, so they can see the tangents. And then they actually realize, wow, I need to aim 3.5 feet.
Yeah, higher.
Yes.
All right. So at any rate, that's that's if you always make. Well, let's talk briefly about reading putts
Mm-hmm.
and kind of We talked about touch. We just said start it where you aim it. That's the stroke. If you're too dumb to do that, get it into the start line with good pace. And if you're too dumb to do that, you're lost. You're just gonna come and go all day. So we got like maybe it's a quarter to. It's about. We've been going an hour and 45 minutes. You want to try to finish within 15 minutes?
If you want, if you got stuff to
No,
do,
I mean I'll
absolutely.
go all day, but it just makes people go glassy eyed.
They can cut it up and listen to it in 2 episodes.
Okay, well here's the reading. You need to predict the curve, imagine the curve with an imaginary movie in your head, following the ball from the at address spot into the hole where it follows that good pace control without any kind of slashing to speed up or slow down the normal pace. All right, one speed, there's only one curve read. One speed, one read. Once you have a curve, that is actually your brain's predicting the real physics of how a golf ball would roll over that distance, that contour, and that up and down elevation change, and that green speed. All right, so the brain is predicting the actual physics. Instinctively, it does it better than people using numbers, because the instincts are better than numbers because they accept what matters in terms of it is what it is, whatever it is. And I don't need a substitute number that ain't right anyway because it's just a wild guess. So instincts are better than numbers. All right, so if you just shut up and pay attention and predict with the usual ball speed, your body will basically be living the tempo and rhythm while you're looking at the putt and reading. And then you'll get a better read. You'll see a curve. All right. That curve, one speed, one read. When you execute the putt, there's only one possible read or speed that will actually follow that curve, and it's the same that you use to predict the physics. So there's one read, one speed. And those two sentences gotta go together. This is like the secret of Ben Crenshaw. He never changed his tempo. One speed, one read, one speed when you execute. All right. Now we got to find the start line. If you followed a curve to the hole, like you're driving a little miniature toy car along the way, and you went over the lip at the hole, center cut, the way a perfect putt ought to do. If you back that car up from the hole and run your movie in reverse and fill in the blanks of the shape of the curve over the apex and back to the ball, more break at the hole, less break after you get past the apex, sort of kind of straightens out a little bit when you get back to the ball. Underneath the ball, the headlights of that car are the tangent. And that's the start line. It's not optional. It's just geometry. So if you use that little car backing up to your ball and see the headlights direction, that's where you aim. So you want the skill to be good at seeing the ball go to the hole over a curve, find the curve, and then you want the other skill of backing the ball up like a car back to the ball to see the start line. All right, so that's one way of about 4 or 5 to get a start line, and it's basically a really good one. Once you have that start line, aim the putter 90 degrees into the start line. Same as the headlights on the ball or car. Once your putter face is aimed, no plan B, putt exactly 90 degrees where the putter face aims with the usual ball pace. There's no plan B. All right. So golfers who don't know that, they do what I call now what putting, where they kind of see the curve. Okay, been playing since they're 4. Ought to be able to. So they see a curve, but they don't know about start lines. They don't know about aiming putter faces. They don't know about the full stroke. They don't know about the pace. So they kind of aim something. If they aim the line on the ball and step up beside it, they go, now what? That doesn't look right. And so now what golfers, they're 90%. They're just so legion throughout golf because nobody knows squat about it. So when they set up, they go, now what? And they start thinking, okay, I'm not sure where my putter face aims, but I'm going to do something. I'm going to hit it into the curve. Now I just got to figure out how hard to hit it. No, you don't. Make the normal tempo rhythm and do monkey cow, and it's always going to be right. As long as you pay attention to, like the monkey, to what matters, you're going to get the right size swing with your tempo rhythm. So don't worry about that. Worry about going dead 90 degrees off the putter face.
Yeah, it's odd that they would be able to, after so many years, decade and
Well,
a
they're
half, 2
missing a whole
decades.
lot they shouldn't be missing.
Right, but it's odd that they develop enough of a skill to understand, to see the curve in the break, but they don't understand that following that break all the way back to the ball, as you mentioned, and then wherever those headlights point, you putt 90, or you line up your face
Well,
90 degrees to that.
they don't know how to read putts. They know how to see a curve, and that's pretty much it.
Is it? Do you think that's where that theory came out that to maybe ease their egos, some putters' egos, that people either read in curves or in straight lines?
Oh, that's Mike Shannon's complete hooey, boy. What he said, you got to listen to what he said. He said, of all the players that come to my putting studio, where it was, Sea Island, Georgia, and all the good ones come to me, 35% of them can't see a straight line and can't putt that way. And 65% of them see curves. Okay. Now, the word see, the way Mike Shannon uses it, is completely uneducated, contentless, and doesn't know what he's talking about. Period. Totally ignorant. The word can't, 35% can't see straight lines, is really means that he can't teach it. That doesn't mean they can't do it. It means he can't teach it. All right. So he's basically telling players to kind of hit it in the curve. That's what they're already doing. That ain't going to help. What you need to do is get them organized better on how to read the putt to begin with, and then how to see the start line, and then take a couple of weeks to figure out that it's real, you dumbass. It's going to change your life if you actually do it. But he just sees these guys that can't see straight lines, and he says, well, God bless you. You're 35% of all golfers. That just means he can't teach it. All right. Now, how do you teach confidence to a player that that's the correct start line? One is it's the tangent, the headlights of the car. The second one is you got to putt where you aim. If you don't putt where you aim, why bother aiming? They ain't never going to tell you anything. You aim out to the right in your pull strokes. Maybe you get it started on line. Maybe you don't. Who's to say? You got somebody standing behind you watching you putt all the time. Maybe they'll report to you. That one went 1 degree to the left. That one went 1 degree to the right. You know how many grass blades that is 4 inches away from your putter face if you're 1 degree to the left? It's one grass blade wrong 4 inches off your putter face. They don't even know to look for that on the PGA Tour. If you follow the 90-degree angle off your putter face 4 inches away, there's one grass blade and the bottom of your ball better down roll over it so you don't putt where you aim. They don't know that. So they're not able to learn anything. They're not able to correct anything. They're not even watching for it. All right, so all these guys that are like doing the gimmicks and stuff, they're not even checking to make sure that it did what it's supposed to do. They're just working the gimmicks, putting off a little 1 inch wide burnished aluminum bar that's 18 inches long. See if you can get it off the far end. Okay, got it off the far end. Now, what did you learn about your putter face and your stroke motion when it goes off the far end? Nothing. Weren't even paying attention to that. All right, so all these gimmicks that people are doing is not really teaching about body action and precision for putting. A 10-inch dead center putt aimed straight at the center of the cup, 4¼ inches in diameter left to right, 2 1/8 inch from center cup to the right edge, and 2 1/8 inch center of cup to the left edge. 10 feet away, 120 inches away, if you rotate that putter face off the dead center aim, where 90 degrees off the face aims at the center of the cup, and you rotate that toe open 1 degree, you will miss the right edge of the putt for 10 feet away. So 1 degree misses at 120 inches later is 2.125 inches wrong. All right. Now, how far wrong is it 4 inches in front of the putter face? 1 grass blade. The 2 grass blades down there are side by side. The left one is the one you should have hit, but you hit the right one. All right. That's going to miss a 10-foot putt by half a cup. And if you go to 20 feet, your precision requirement is not 1 degree anymore. It's 1/2 of a degree. If you go to 30, it's 1/3 of a degree. All right. Now, if you swing your toe on a 10-foot putt, 1 degree open to the right, how far did the toe edge of your putter actually move on the ground? You got any wild idea what that answer is?
In inches
You
or
measure
millimeters?
the toe when it's perfectly aimed,
Right.
a 10-foot putt to the center of the cup, and then you open your toe to the right 1 degree wrong. How many inches does your toe actually move from perfect to wrong?
1, 3, 6. I can't do the math in my head.
It's about 1/4 of a tenth of an inch, and a grass blade is almost 1/10 of an inch thick, so it's 1/4 of a grass blade wrong. That's 1 degree wrong. You think these guys know that? You think they train on 90, not 89? No. There's nobody out there that knows any of this stuff. There's the people that read it on my website, they repeat it as if they discovered it. But there's only a couple of those people that do that. But PGA Tour players, they don't know that you got to start at dead 90 degrees by God and not accept anything 89 left or right. You can't do that. 10-foot putt, you're out. You're out of the hole.
You're trunk slamming.
Right. Now you got rub of the green, footprints and ball marks and irregularly shaped grass blades and all that. Rub of the green is probably on a 10-foot putt, might be your line might maintain directness, and it might not. But if it's off by rub of the green, it's probably as much as 1 inch left or right of what you would hope to hit. So if you start a ball 90 right off the putter face on a 10-foot putt, by the time it gets to the hole, it might go in a half inch or 1 inch to the right. It's still going to go in because that's half of the hole is 2.125 inches. But rub of the green is about 1% or 2% of however long the putt is. So if it's 120 inches, it's 1.2 inches left to right. Might be 2 inches wrong altogether. 90% or more of all putts will be somewhere in there, but they ain't going to be perfect because the green's not perfect.
Mm-hmm.
The future of greens, by the way, they're about topped out on how much they can make speeds go up without killing the green. To make the speed go up, you gotta cut it low and then roll it. And cutting it low, you get too low, you'll kill the grass blade. Not enough chlorophyll up there to keep the system alive. So they kind of topped out maybe 12, stimp 12, stimp 13. So the future of greens is not green speed getting faster. It's green surfaces getting truer with less rub of the green. Now, the golfers on tour, when they get a really true green, like they had at TPC, they should be able to put lights out if they just get it started on line, because it's not going to wiggle left or right by rubbing the green. There'll be a lot more fulfilling their intentionality if they read it right and they putt with good pace control. They're going to sink more than usual. So good, true green surfaces without a lot of rub of the green in them, they're kind of like candy. It's a little bit happy days for putting, regardless of the green speed. As long as it's true, you're going to make more than usual. So at any rate,
on putters, head design, because I mean, you get all the mallets nowadays and you get all this MOI and moving weight and all that shit around. And is there any justice, or not justice is the wrong word to use, but any valid sense that some of these putters will help correct aim deficiencies, or do what they claim to?
Just compare doing it skillfully versus doing it where the putter lines are supposedly helping you. Okay, we will compare that versus that. What would you do skillfully to aim a putter face? You would look at the heel toe line, and you would be able to see a direction 90 degrees off the face.
Mm-hmm.
All right, no aiming aids at all, no lines, nothing. All right, so you find a little tiled floor in your kitchen, and you aim away from the putter face 90 degrees down one line, but then you look at the putter face, how it matches the top of the tee on the horizontal lines, not the line you're putting, but the lines at the putter face. And you look to make sure there's no gap between the heel and the line, or the toe edge of the putter face and the line. So you learn the skill of squaring the heck up. All right.
That's how I did it on a tile.
Yeah, it's great. You should teach your players that, because they're not good at that. Most players that use the line on the ball, they don't even put their sweet spot out all the way to the back of the ball or the back of the line on the ball. They stop a little short, about maybe an eighth of an inch short. And they also don't square their putter face up to the line through the ball like it's a line on a T shape. They don't square the putter face up to the top of the tee and aim straight 90 degrees through the ball, the same as the line on the ball. They don't do that. That's more than 70, 80% of golfers that use the line on the ball don't even aim it. They don't aim the line on the ball because they suck. They don't have skill, and they're not watching for what they need to be watching for because they're not being educated. All right, there's two things you got to do right. Get the sweet spot all the way out there. What's the problem? Why are you doing it wrong? What they're doing is they're looking down at the ball as if the ball is a fat round sphere, and they're looking towards the center of the sphere, but they're looking on a little slant angle at the ball, and their laser beam of vision hits the top quadrant of the round sphere of the ball, not vertically down through the ball, but on a slant. And then it goes into the center of the ball where you think the center of the ball is, and that's like looking at the ball when you're aiming your putter face according to the line on the ball. Well, that point where your laser beam goes through the spherical surface of the ball in the top quadrant, that's like an eighth of an inch back from the actual line on the ball. And that's where they put their sweet spot when they move it out. They line it up behind that piercing point, not the line on the ball. And if they just watch that, they would see that they're not getting it all the way out there, but they're too uneducated to do that. So this is like bad golf teachers. By every one of them suck. All right, the second skill is they don't square their putter face up through the line on the ball. They aim right and pull. So the toe is open to the back line on the ball. It's open to the outside. That's probably 70% of people using the line on the ball don't even aim the line. What the hell? That doesn't make any sense. So, it's terrible what they're doing. But back to reading. Let's say we found one way to get a start line, which is we back up the car and we see the headlights. Here's another way. Make a baseline from ball to hole, straight, center of hole, and then turn the line up the fall line. This would be a 6-12 on a clock. If your ball is at 4 o'clock, the baseline will look like the hour hand on a 4 o'clock, and the fall line look like the minute hand pointing at 12. All right, that two lines makes a corner at the hole, and the baseline divides the universe into the high side and the low side. The high side is in the corner, the same side that the 12 is on, and the low side of the baseline is to the left where the 6 is. All right, so this little corner isolates the only part of the green that's relevant when you actually sink a putt. The only part of the green that's required for you to stay on high side from ball all the way to hole. You can't go across the baseline to the left to the low side and have any hope that the ball's going to come back. It won't. So you got to stay on the high side of the baseline all the way to the hole. All right. We're looking for a combination of line and ball speed that will do that. Now the ball speed is already set in stone because you've got one ball speed that you always use. So the question is, what is the start line that coincides with that ball pace so your ball never goes low side and makes it all the way to the hole? And what you do is you start out aiming dead straight to the center of the cup, and you say that would never work because as soon as I hit it, it's going to go low side. And as soon as I hit it with perfect pace, it's still going to go low side, so that's not going to work. And then you start turning your putter face to the high side, rotating your putter face a little bit at a time, and you get an immediate feeling when it's not enough. Aim to the high side. The only way to get the ball all the way to the hole is to speed up your pace. And you have a rule against doing that. You never do anything other than the perfect pace. So that's telling you exactly what you need to know, that aim to the high side is not enough. Good. Now what do you do about that? You aim a little higher and check that body feeling again. If you still feel like you need to speed up, you haven't aimed high enough, so keep on going. So you keep turning your putter face a little higher, and you check that feeling of need to speed up. And when you finally get that putter face turned to the high side correct, and you have no need to speed up, and it'll make it all the way to the hole, that's the perfect start line for your curve, and that's the curve that it will be matched when you pull the trigger dead straight where you aim with the correct ball speed. All right, so that's an instinctive way to get your putter face turned exactly to the right start line. Now, if you had headlights on your putter face and you shine them across to the fall line, those headlights are going to hit the fall line at a spot, a target spot. If you had the car where you backed up the car along the curve back to the ball and then turned those headlights on, they're going to match the headlights that you just turned on by turning your putter face to the high side. So that's two instinctive movies, or one is a body feel and one is actually a movie to find out the same start line in two different ways. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so what we have in this case is when you back the car up, there isn't a target spot until you turn the headlights on. Then there's a target spot over on the fall line, put a T-peg there. And then if you aim down the baseline and start turning your putter face to the high side until there's no need to speed up, and then turn your putter face on, headlights on, they're going to match the first T-peg over there on the fall line. So we have two ways to get a start line, and you don't even need the T-peg over at the fall line. But if you have it, that's great too. So there's like two different things. There's actually three to when you talk about a start line. One is the instinctive movies show you the headlights. They'll show you the same headlights both times. The second thing is there's a target over on the fall line, and that's points on a line. One is the ball, one is the target over the fall line. The same target shows you the same start line, so that's the second thing. The target shows you the start line. The third thing is what's the angle that you turned your putter face off the baseline to the high side when you got the right start line. So there's a feeling for the start line. There's a tangent for the start line. There's a target over at the fall line for the start line. And there's an angle off the baseline to the high side for the start line. So that's actually 4. Right? Now, all we've talked about so far is instinctive reading. But let's look and compare the math bull hockey. Because the bull hockey of the math is not right. It's about right. But it's never as good as instinctive reading. All right, so what do you do when you take my little formula? Same flatness from ball to hole, 1 slope, not 2 or 3. Otherwise, don't use the math at all. Second, where's the fall line direction? Third, what's the slope steepness? Fourth, what's the straight distance from the center of the cup back along the baseline to the ball? All right, so let's give some examples. 1 flat slope, an 8-foot putt, 8 foot from the ball to the center of the cup. 2% slope and green speed normal. What's the formula? Break inches, we'll call B, equals slope, or S, divided by 2 times distance in feet. So B equals S divided by 2 times D. Not too complicated. All right, so what's the slope? 2%. What's the distance? 8. So what's the break? 2 divided by 2 is 1. 1 times 8 is 8 inches. All right, let's do that again with 1% slope. All right, what's the break for 1% slope? 8 feet away. 1 divided by 2 times 8 is 4 inches break. All right, let's do for 3% slope. 3 divided by 2 is 1.5 times 8 is 12 inches of break. And let's do a 4% slope. 4 divided by 2 is 2 inches per slope. 2 inches of break per percent slope. 4 divided by 2 is 2 inches. Times 8 is 16 inches. So you run from the center of the cup up the fall line and a 1% slope, you put it down 4 inches from the center of the cup, which is like a little bit less than 2 inches out the top of it. 2% slope, you put it 8 inches up the fall line from the center of the cup. 3%, you put it 12 inches up from the center of the cup. And 4%, you put it 16 inches up from the center of the cup.
So you're going up the fall line.
Fall line, exactly. And that's the target at the fall line, aim and putt.
Yeah, I want to make sure people don't go 16 inches to the right of the hole. It's 16 inches up the fall line.
That's what you do when you figure out the angle. But we're just calculating the break.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this doesn't have to be a 4 o'clock ball position. This works for any ball position all around the hole. First, put a tee peg down on the fall line, and then any position 8 feet out around the clock, they all put at the same tee peg. 7 o'clock putt, aims at the same tee peg. All right, let's say you got a 1% slope and you're 4 inches out from the center of the cup straight up the fall line. 7 o'clock putt, aims at it, breaks left to right. 4 o'clock putt, aims at it, puts right to left, breaks right to left. 2 o'clock putt, downhill, aims at that tee peg, breaks right to left into the hole. 11 o'clock putt, aims at that tee peg, breaks left to right into the hole. 1 tee peg for all 8-foot putts. That slope, that fall line. All right, now let's compare that target with an instinctive target. It is what it is, whatever it is, for the flatness. Now, it's not really exactly flat all the way from ball to hole. Well, your instincts will take that into account. Well, it's not really 8 feet because I didn't exactly measure it 7.75 of a foot. All right, so it's less break. Okay, it's not really a step 10. Maybe it's a step 10.5 because this green is up high and in the air and hot. So this green is a little faster than most greens on this golf course. So more break, right? And so you do all that. It is what it is by the instincts, and you just live in the moment. You don't try to put numbers on stuff. You just say, I'm going to make a movie on this surface or whatever it is. That will make a target, a headlights pointing at a spot on the fall line slightly different than the math will. And guess what? The instincts are always better. And the instincts are never crazy different from the math, but they're always better. So if there's a difference between the math and the instincts, do both, but trust the instincts. It's not going to be but like a half an inch or a quarter of an inch different in most cases. Might be higher, might be lower, but trust the instincts because they're better. All right, now aim point, stuff like that. They don't know this. They don't have the instinct part of it. That's all developed only and exclusively by the putting zone. Thank you, golfers. You're welcome. Seriously, it pisses me off. People don't realize that. Aim point is not reading a putt. It's you tell me the slope, and I'll tell you where to aim your finger. And then the left edge of the finger is on the center of the cup, and the right edge is your start line.
Yeah, with some of the books that the pros have now with the greens, they have those little boxes all over the green, and each one is, I think, a foot. I can't remember. It's been a while.
Well, I've counted them. If the green is 33 yards from front to back, they'll have like 25 fall line arrows from front to back, something like that. So they're basically about a yard apart, roughly speaking. And so if you have a 3-foot putt, you're only looking at one arrow and one fall line and one slope percent. If you got a 6-foot putt, you're going across 2 arrows and 2 different fall lines, and you're not even oriented the same way. What the hell is that book doing other than confusing you? You can't. I don't know any golfer that knows how to calculate the curve across 3 different fall lines and 3 different slope percents. None. Zero. So these books look good, smell good, and suck out the ass, confusing the hell out of golfers. The only thing the books are doing is they look at that last arrow and sort of say, well, did I at least get that one right? And they look in the book. But looking in the book, actually getting help on what they ought to be doing by skill, they don't know nothing about that. Now, remember I said make a corner and use instincts? That'll trump that book all day because the corner goes across hill and dale. It doesn't matter. Fall lines this way, that way, slopes, steep, mild, doesn't matter. You got to keep it on the high side and you got to nut it into the corner with perfect ball speed. So that instinctive reading is not limited to one fall line, one flat area, one slope only. It's not limited to one green speed. It's all purpose, absolutely genuine, killer championship methodology using your feel to read the break. Except it's not stupid feel the way golfers talk about the word and don't know what they're saying. It's intelligent neuroscience and physics feel. You're welcome. Now I'm a little testy about people not realizing what 30 years of research and science has done to bring these gifts to golf. I'm 68 and I'm a little pissed off about
it. Do you, because you've studied so much science and then
I created this. I personally am the only person in golf history that has taught and discovered and been able to teach a 10-year-old how to read a putt by instinctive feel and know how to teach it to another 10-year-old. Nobody in golf's ever done that. I did it. I need that to be credited to me because they're not going to pay me because they're all aim point people. Yeah, I'm a little bit pissed off about it. I'm a jolly guy. I'll teach anybody to ask me. I don't really care if they pay me. But I don't want to go 6 feet under without getting credit for this because I spent 30 years on it. Science. I don't know anybody's cracked 30 years worth of neuroscience books or anatomy, greens agronomy. All of that. I did all of that. And I want the credit because it's valuable. Way better than what PGA Tour players are doing. So I use both math and instincts, but I know the difference. All right, now aim point math is basically the angle only, and then the finger shows you a start line. It doesn't really show you how far out to the right. It just shows you a finger. And if you say left edge of the finger is on the center of the hole and right edge of the finger is exactly so many inches or balls out right or whatever you want to call it, it's really making an angle. And aim point people are too ignorant of physics to know how to make the correct angle. All right. Not only do they not know the correct angle that ought to go with a 1% slope or 2%, 3%, they don't know how to use the fingers correctly because there's two things they always get completely confused about where you put your finger. Number one, you got to make an angle with your finger. Where you hold it out there and the left edge is the center of the cup and the right edge is the angle. You got to know how thick your finger is from left to right. I've never heard that aim point even knows that kids' fingers are different from adults' fingers.
Right. We talked about that when you were here.
Right. Well, now we're on a podcast trying to educate listeners. The second thing is how far out do you hold your width of your finger to make the left edge, right edge on the hole make the correct angle underneath the ball between the baseline and the start line. Okay? So first we got to back up and say, what's the correct angle for 1% slope? And you don't calculate it. You ask the good Lord above, tell me the answer. And here's an empirical test to ask the question properly. You get 10 feet away and you aim straight at the hole on a side hill putt for 3 o'clock. And you putt with great pace all the way to the fall line up and down through the hole from 6 to 12 through the hole. And the ball will break off the baseline to the low side and will arrive slow at the fall line below the hole. Will cross the fall line at a certain spot X, and then it'll roll about 2 more times and stop. And if you go back and measure from the center of the cup down the fall line to the X, that will be a certain number for a 1% green and a stemp 10 green. And that number is the Lord's answer, not a calculation, not a theory. And that answer is from 10 feet away, 1% slope, stemp 10 green, cut it straight at the center of the cup, breaks low. It crosses the fall line 5 inches below the hole. Try it yourself. See if that ain't right. All right, so a 1% slope breaks 5 inches over 10 inches, or excuse me, 5 inches over 10 feet. And 10 feet is 120 inches. So it's breaking 5 over 120 inches. Now, if you simplified that fraction by dividing the top and the bottom by 5, you get 1 over 24. Right?
Mm-hmm.
If you stood 24 inches away on a 3 o'clock side hill putt and you put it straight at the center of the cup, it's going to break 1 inch to the low side before it crosses the fall line.
Right.
You stand 10 feet away, 120 inches, and put it straight, it's going to break 10 inches. All right. So, 5 inches. All right. So 1 inch is from the center of the cup sideways down the fall line. And 24 inches is the baseline from ball to center of the cup. So that's 2 pieces of a triangle. And the only missing piece is the hypotenuse from the ball to 1 inch below the cup, center of the cup. Now let's flip that target 1 inch up the fall line towards the 12. And now our triangle is 24 inches to the center of the cup and 1 inch up the fall line, and then the hypotenuse from the ball to the 1 inch above the cup. That's a right triangle. The hypotenuse is the start line. The 1 inch up the fall line is the target. But we want to know what's the angle at the ball from the baseline to the hypotenuse. And if you do the little trigonometry on your calculator, the answer is 2.38 degrees. All right. That's for 1% slope. An angle doesn't really matter how far you are the way a target does. A target, you have to know the distance. But an angle, you don't have to know the distance. You just have to know it's the same one slope all the way flat, even though it's tilted from the ball to the hole. And then 2.38 degrees is the angle you make on any 1% slope, however far off it stays flat. 12 feet away, same flatness, and 2.38 degrees to the high side. But that's it. All right, now, how do you make a finger make a 2.38 degree angle? First, you measure the finger, and then you figure out how far to put it away from your eyeball, because the finger is the 1-inch part of the triangle. And the 24-inch part assumes that your finger is 1 inch wide, but it's not. Most people's fingers are 3/4 of an inch wide. So instead of putting your finger 2 feet away from you, the way a lot of people like Adam Scott and little children do, you need to put your finger 18 inches from your eye. So the 24 part becomes 18 inches, and the 1-inch part becomes 3/4 of an inch. All right. So 3/4 of 24 is 18. So that's how you get that. All right. So if you actually knew 2.38 is God's answer to a 1% slope, you would put your finger 3/4 of an inch wide, 18 inches from your eyeball. Otherwise, you're going to mess it up. If you put it too far, you're going to get too small of an angle. 3/4 of an inch wide finger held 24 inches is not going to give you 2.3. It's going to give you about 2.1 or something. Quarter of a degree wrong. If you actually had an inch wide finger and you held it 18 inches from your face, that's going to be too fat of a read. It's going to be like 2.5 or something. All right, so you're getting 20% wrong by not knowing the width of your finger and where to put it. Aimpoint doesn't know that. All right, now let's make a really alternative way to get start line number 4 by math. Target, angle. Let's do the angle part. When you read the slope percent from a side hill putt, you're basically standing astride the side hill putt and wondering how many percent different elevation your left foot and your right foot are. The right foot is higher, the left foot is a little lower. Well, if it's 1% difference, what is that going to be? What's 1% difference over the width of your stance is like 15 inches. So those 2 feet are 15 inches apart. How high or how low is the left foot compared to the right foot? The answer is it's something like 1/10 of an inch or less. It's ridiculous to think that you're good at reading that with your ankles. Mm-hmm. But let's just go ahead. All right. So left foot, right foot astride a side hill putt baseline. That is basically telling how high is the fall line leaving out of the cup headed to the 6, and how much lower is it when you go 100 units down the fall line, like 100 centimeters or 100 inches. A 1% slope, if I went straight down the fall line 100 inches, that's 8 1/3 feet, 8 feet and 4 inches. If I went down the fall line from the bottom of the cup 8 feet and 4 inches, and then I measured how much the elevation had dropped at that point compared to what it was at the lip of the cup, and the answer was 1 inch lower, that would be 1 inch divided by 100 inches equals 1% slope. A 1% slope, 8 feet and 4 inches away from the bottom of the lip down the fall line, is only 1 inch lower. All right. Now, if you use centimeters, a meter is 100 centimeters. So let's use centimeters. A meter is 40 inches, and 100 of those is a centimeter. How many centimeters in a meter? So every centimeter is 40 divided by 100 is 4 inches per centimeter. That's the same as a fingernail from tip to cuticle. And there are 2.5 of those in an inch. So if you go down the fall line 100 centimeters, you go 40 inches down the fall line, not 100 inches. So it's a whole lot more convenient. Go 40 inches down the fall line and then estimate how many fingernails that spot is lower than the bottom of the bottom rim of the cup. The answer is, if it's 1 fingernail lower, that's a 1% slope. Okay. Now, all of that is going down the fall line. But the angle business, the aim point business, and the 2.38 degree business is standing astride of a 5 o'clock baseline or a 4 o'clock baseline or a 3 or a 2 or whatever baseline, not standing astride the 3 o'clock baseline. Targets, they only use the 3 o'clock baseline. But angles use whatever baseline your ball is located on. All right, so let's say 5 o'clock. If you put right foot, left foot on either side of a 5 o'clock baseline, what percentage difference would it be? And if your answer is still 1%, that's a 1% slope. But how does that relate? I mean, you got to do that with your ankles or what? No. There's basic geometry that says if you know the 3 o'clock slope down the fall line, you automatically can fill in the blanks on every other clock position around the hole. 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. There's only 3 of them. And then you repeat 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. It's the same 3. And if you go from 3 up, 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 12 o'clock, same 3 again. And if you go from 9 up to 12, it's 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, same 3 again. So what is that relationship between the 3 o'clock slope and the 4 and the 5? It's just trigonometry. You just do a little cosine angle down from 3. And the angle from 3 down to 4 is 30 degrees. And from 4 down to 5 is another 30 degrees. And from 5 down to 6 is another 30 degrees. Every difference between any hours around the clock, they're all 30 degrees apart. So from 3 down to 4 is 30 degrees, and the cosine of 30 is 87%. The cosine of 60 from 3 down to 5 is exactly 1/2 or 50%. So let's say you got a 2% slope on a 3 o'clock fall line deal. What's the 5 o'clock slope? 1/2, 1%. If you just know stuff, you don't use your angles at all. Ankles. You don't use your ankles at all. All right, so we already know the 3 o'clock and we made a target. It's a 6-foot putt, stamped in green. 3 o'clock is 2%. So our little formula is 2 divided by 2 times 6. 6 inches of break. Put a T-peg straight up the fall line. Target, 6 inches. Now, go down to any 6-foot putt around the clock. They all aim at the same target, right?
Right.
So we're going to go down to 5 o'clock and we're going to make an angle. And it better aim at the same target or else something's screwy in St. Louis. So we'll go to 5 o'clock and we'll say, what's the slope on the 5 o'clock baseline? 1/2 of 3. Whatever it was at 3 is 1/2. What was it at 3? 2%. So what is it at 5 o'clock? 1%. Oh, good. Now we can just make a 2.38 degree angle and it'd be aiming at the same T-peg. All right. Now, how do you make a 2.38 degree angle with your putter face? I'll tell you. If you move the toe aiming straight at the baseline, back away to the high side, open to the high side, 1/8 of an inch of a normal putter, that will exactly make 2.38 degree angle. All right, so here we are at 5 o'clock, and we say, what do we need to do here? Aim point? No, hell no. What we'll do is we'll say this is a 1% slope. So just aim straight at the center of the cup and then roll your toe of your putter back 1/8 of an inch, and that's good putt. It'll aim at the same tee peg. Now, say you're 20 feet away and it's the same flatness from ball to hole, and you say, okay, 5 o'clock. I know it's a 1% slope, so I'm just going to turn my putter 1/8 of an inch. Now the target will be higher up the fall line, but if you did the math to figure out where to put a tee peg on the fall line with distance and all that stuff, you get the exact same answer. So you can use angles quite effectively if you know stuff that aim point doesn't know. Now, let me fill in the blank so I don't lose people. How do I know that 1/8 of an inch of a toe swing makes a 2.38 degree angle for a 1% slope? Answer, I made the same triangle 1 inch and 24 inches, but I reduced it down to the size of a putter head from the hosel to the toe equals the 24 part. And then the toe swing to the high side is going to be the 1 inch part. So what is the length of a putter head from the hosel to the toe? The answer, most of them are 3 inches. So how do I scale the 24-inch magic triangle down to 3 inches? I divide 24 by 8. How do I scale the 1 inch of the magic triangle down to the toe swing? I divide 1 inch by 8. So 1/8 inch of a toe swing is exactly 2.38 degrees from the baseline to the start line.
That's pretty cool.
Oh, yeah, no crap. No ankles, no fingers, just no stuff about read the fall line down the slope, steepness down the fall line, and then translate it to either 4 o'clock putt, 90%, or 5 o'clock putt, 1/2 of whatever the 3 o'clock putt was. All right, so I walk up to a 3 o'clock putt, I say, okay, this is 2%. And then I walk down to a 5 o'clock putt, and I say, this is 1%. So I crank my putter from the baseline to the start line, hypotenuse, 1/8 of an inch, and putt, and that's it. Now let's say the 3 o'clock putt was 4%. And I walk down to the 5, and I say, this is half of whatever 3 was, so this is 2%. I crank my putter 1/8 inch twice and putt. All right, now let's go back up to the 3 o'clock putt, the side hill putt, and let's say it's 10 feet out. And I say, okay, the slope steepness of the 3 o'clock putt is 3%. What do? You turn your putter face from straight at the center of the cup to 1/8 of an inch to the right 3 times, and that's it. Putt. You can do that anywhere you know that the baseline slope percentage, if you know what it is. Now let's say the 3 o'clock putt 10 feet away is not perfectly 3%. It's 2 3/4%. And what do you do with your putter face? You aim it straight at the center of the cup, and you turn it 1/8 of an inch, turn it a 2/8 of an inch, and then you turn it 0.75 of an eighth of an inch, 3/4 of an eighth of an inch. You're good again, putt. All right, so there's all these math ways to get the break, start line, and targets at the end of start lines, and angles of start lines figured out by math. But that only works when it's one same slope, flat, but tilted from ball to hole. If you get more than one slope between the ball and the hole, that don't help. It doesn't work right. So you always use math, and then you always use instincts behind the math to slightly adjust the math crapola. And if you're no good at the instincts, you're probably going to be way better if you just did the stupid math. Break equal S divided by 2 times D, or 1/8 for every percent slope you're looking at on the baseline. Once you get to explain it all, it's ridiculous.
I'm sure a lot of people are going to have to rewind that and listen to it a couple times
Well, I'll tell you once again, figure out the slope on the 3 o'clock side hill putt. How far down the baseline, 100 centimeters away, did it drop? And if the answer is one fingernail, it's 1%. If it's two fingernails, it's 2%, etc. The way you do that for trial is you get an aiming stick, and aiming sticks are 48 inches, so you make a little a little Sharpie marker 8 inches short of one end. You put one end at the bottom of the cup, and then you put your little Sharpie mark 100 centimeters down the fall line. And then you lift that aiming stick up, and so it's level, like you're going to put champagne glasses all up and down the stick. And then at the little Sharpie mark, you stick your finger straight down to the green again, and you look from the bottom of the aiming stick, how many fingernails is it to the green? And it's a 1% slope, there's only one fingernail, and 2% slopes, there's two. 3%, there's three fingernails. They're all 0.4 inches each, so 3 fingernails is 1.2 inches. That'll cover about 90% of all fall line slope determinations you ever need to make. And then since it's all crap math anyway, you just get familiar with it. You don't even have to do the aiming stick anymore. Of course, it would be illegal in around the golf to do that. So you just get familiar with what a 2% looks like, and you walk up bold as brass with your pants, your shirt tucked in your big old boy pants, and you look down the fall line and you say, looks like a 2 to me. So what's a 5? 1. What's a 4? 90% of 2, 1.8. What do you do with a 4 o'clock when it's 1.8%? 1/8 of an inch and 0.8% of another eighth. But you get real good with these angles, you don't need to do any math. Break equals S divided by 2 times B. But there's nothing inconsistent between both of these methods. They both aim at the same target. They both make the same angle. And you can get the start line either way, but you always have to follow it up by instincts. Every time. That's the kind of stuff that Adam Scott doesn't know. Costing him millions of dollars every year and 8, 9, 10 years of his life, not knowing what it takes an hour to explain.
You know, I thought that one of our discussions you had mentioned, you had written the book many years ago.
2008.
Right. But what's that now?
Right.
Correct. Four Skills of Putting, I believe was the title of it.
It's called Optimal Putting.
Optimal Putting, that was right.
Brain science, instincts, and the 4 skills of putting.
Are you?
It's how feel actually works for aiming, reading, stroke, and touch.
Are you updating that, or are you working on a new book that might be coming out?
Well, I've got a 250-page collection of articles that go one skill at a time, and the drills for skills one at a time. And then elaboration on reading putts by math, elaborations on reading putts by instincts, elaborations on aiming putter faces from behind the ball, from beside the ball, and by your body motion. I've got articles about how important it is to get extremely good from 10 feet and in. I've got several articles on lag putting. I've got an article on what's called an X shape. If you put a T-peg target above a hole on the fall line, because you measured how many feet away you are and what the slope is and all that, you did your little formula and put your T-peg in the fall line above the cup. If you took aiming sticks and you crisscrossed them in an X shape and you put the cross point of the X right down on top of the T-peg on the fall line, and you made the fall line run symmetrically up through the middle of the X, everything within the X above or below the hole is not aimed outside the hole. Good to know. And everything in between towards the side hill directions outside of the X, those are all aimed outside the hole. Good to know. All right. So it depends on how long a distance you're planning your little X to be. If I planned a 3-foot putt, like I'm going to lag to a hole and I'm going to get it within a 3-foot radius of the cut in a 6-foot circle around the hole, my lag X is going to be a 3-foot target, and it's going to be like 2% slope. It's going to be 3 inches above the center of the cup with the T-peg down. If you put the X aiming sticks over top of that T-peg and you push the aiming sticks towards the hole so that they just graze the edges of the hole on both left and right of the hole, everything inside the X from 3 feet away is not aimed outside the hole, it's inside the hole. And everything outside the X on the side hill direction, those are all aimed outside the hole. Good to know. So when you're lagging to a 3-foot radius circle or 6-foot circle around the hole, what's a good lag? Answer: inside the X. Make it a whole lot easier. Downhill or uphill, both of those are pretty much the same. If you lag exactly to the fall line for a lag putt, and you aim a little high, once that lag gets right over to the hole and is going to stop exactly on the fall line, it will curl down and erase your extra high aim, and you'll end up within 2 feet with a straight downhill putt. Okay? People don't know that. So that kind of lag putt, and also, you're 6 feet out. If you make the aiming stick 6 feet long and you put a 2% slope 6 inches up the fall line from the center of the cup, and then you pinch those little 6-foot long aiming sticks, they'd have to be 6 foot uphill and 6 foot downhill, so they're actually 12-foot aiming sticks. So you pinch them down so they touch and graze the edges of the hole. Just think how big of an area 6 feet below the hole, 6 feet above the hole, you can safely know is not aimed outside the hole. Big help. Calms you down big time. All right, take a 10-foot putt. So you got 20-foot long aiming sticks on a T-peg that's 10 inches above the hole, and you squeeze them down going over the edges of the cup. That X is long, but it's narrow. But the total acreage inside those X's below the hole for 10 feet down and above the hole for 10 feet up, that's a great thing to know about. Aim and shoot. It ain't going outside the hole because you've already assessed the flatness and the slope. And that's the X. Everything between the X is in the hole. Might be an edge putt, might be an inside left, might be inside right, might be right edge, but it ain't outside the edge. All right. You're welcome, golf.
Are you going to, eventually, are you going to have all the articles in a new
I give
book?
them away every day. Anybody asks me for them, they send me an email. I'll send it right out.
Well, I was going to say I'll have for anyone who wants to know, I'll have Geoff's book in PDF. I've got to get it from you, and I'll have it on my website in the store if anyone wants to get it.
Give it away. You can actually sell it if you like. Your putting zone. You can make some money selling my stuff.
Yeah, well, I'll put that on there so anybody wants to see that, and it'll be in the links to all in the summary of all your of this description and everything else, so people can check it out.
Yeah, let's encapsulate just a little bit. Reading putts with pace control instinctively, you're going to get 2 different headlights show the same target spot on the fall line. Reading putts with mathematics, you can either use a distance formula, break equal S divided by 2 times D. Or you can use an angle formula if you just know that 5 o'clock is half of whatever 3 was, and 4 o'clock is 90% of whatever 3 was. It's actually 87, but we call it 90. And the same thing happens when you go from 9 down to 8. That's 90% of whatever 9 was. And 9 down to 7 is the same thing as half of whatever 9 was, because 7 is symmetrically the same as a 5. And when you go up from the side hill putts, it works the same for 10, 11, and for 2 and 1. So you only need those 2 numbers if you want to go in half-hour increments. It actually goes from 3 to 3:30 is 90, something like 95%, 97%. And from 3 o'clock to 4 is 87, and then from 3 o'clock to 4:30 is 70%, and from 3 o'clock to 5 is 50%, and from 3 o'clock to 5:30 is 25%. So you can fill in all those blanks 1/2 hour at a time if you want to, but you basically just need 4 and 5. All right, so that's reading the numbers by math or by angles. Angles require you to know the baseline slope. Targets need you to know the side hill slopes. And angles don't care how far away you are. Targets do. Targets, you make one circle the same distance out, one target. But angles, as long as it's the same flatness, no two slope deals, it's just whatever that slope is, 1/8 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch. That's a 2% slope. All right, so we got reading is math first if it's one flatness, and always instinct second. And if it's not one flatness, it's only instincts. Make a corner. Baseline, fall line, make a corner. And figure out what the ball speed in combination with the start line is. And then turn your headlights on. All right. In terms of aiming, we said that unless you know how to tell where a putter points from beside the ball at address, don't repoint your putter. Just use the line on the ball. And if the line on the ball doesn't look right to you, that's because you have a stroke that is not straight. And your body is reporting to you, looks like it ought to go straight, but it isn't going to because you got a pull stroke that's going to the left. So anybody that says that looks like it's going left, that is a diagnostic statement that they have a stroke that never goes where they point their putter. You got to always fix that, or else aiming doesn't matter. All right, and so how do you tell where a putter points? Aim your face through the magic spot. You got no skill for that, then salute just slightly below your pupils, and then lower your forehead until you see the sweet spot, and then spin your head, and you can watch your knuckles run a straight dead line, and whatever grass blade your knuckle bumps into 20 feet away, that's where your putter face aims. All right. Now, stroke, we didn't talk about that. But basically, what must happen is more important than the setup and the stroke motion on how you do it. The curve is from physics. The curve don't give a rat what you do it or how you do it. You have to start it on the correct start line with the correct pace. Any way you can get it done. And if you want to be a underperforming PGA Tour player that could be 20% improved with an hour and a half of a real putting lesson, you're just going to start it on a start line somehow or another, and it isn't going to be consistent with where your putter face aims. You aim to the right and pull it to the left and sort of get it on the start line, and sometimes you get the pace right and sometimes you won't. So you're 20% underperformer, dumbass. You want to make millions more money and make a lot more cuts and get a lot more chances and finish in the top 20 a whole lot more, like twice as much as what you've been doing. Pay attention. Putt where your putter face points, always. Read it with pace control. The start line is not optional. You can find it by instincts or you can find it by math. And then aim in the start line and putt the start line 90 degrees where you point your putter and do it with the same tempo and rhythm you always use. No plan B. That'll up your game by at least 20%, Jordan, and all you other people don't know squat about this. It's frustrating because they think it's them. The physics on the ground don't give a rat about them. It cares about whether they know what they're doing when they comply with the physics, with the start line and the pace control. So they need to back up, put all four skills together.
Yeah, they've gone all the physics on the swing. They're just, it
Yeah,
seems like everyone's slow to come around to the putting.
Well, they've always been. It's because they're stupid. 40% of the whole game every day is putting. Putters on greens, if you have 28 putts in a round, which a professional golfer is fairly typical, 28 putts per round, is twice as many as the driver swings. You swing the putter twice as many times in a round of golf as you swing a driver. It has been this way since 1400 in Scotland, and the golfers are too stupid to notice. There's something about golf being an amateur sport that brings all the nutcases in to make money selling baloney without being logical, without being scientific. It inspires all these non-golf people to make technologies and sell them for thousands of dollars And it doesn't make a lick of sense what they're talking about because they don't know the skills of putting before they ever design the technology. You need to know what to measure and what it means when you measure it, and how to talk about bad patterns and good patterns, and what feedback is, and whether you're giving feedback in terms of body action. No, they're not. No, they didn't design the right parameters. No, they don't know how to talk about changing bad to good. These technologies are just non-golfers trying to cash in on the amateur sport of golf where there ain't no cops on the beat running them off. Now, all the swing teachers in the world don't know squat about putting. You can read every book's ever written, and none of them know anything about putting. They got little gimmicks. David Ledbetter, turn your left elbow in. You know, okay, we'll consider it, Dave. Anything else you want us to consider? I mean, we're the big boys over here. We actually know what has to happen. We actually know a lot about anatomy and physiology. We'll consider that you said turn the left elbow in. But if we ask you, why do you say that? And you got butt kiss coming out of your coconut, we're going to send you to recess and out of our classroom because you don't know anything. Maybe he does. I've never heard it. All right. Bryson DeChambeau sticking his arms straight down like little concrete poles off his shoulders. What's he trying to do? How's that supposed to work with tempo and rhythm?
Maybe he's trying to, because it's a misinterpretation of you saying let the arms hang straight for the arm stroke.
Well, that could be because people don't know when I say relax your arms and let them hang. I've never seen a golfer that actually can do that, with the exception of possibly Ben Crenshaw and Lauren Roberts.
Mm-hmm.
They, if you say hang your arms and put them on the putter, what they'll do is they'll hang their arms and they'll lift them up and swing them to the right and find the putter handle, and they'll end up 3 inches higher than they were when they were hanging their arms. All of them. And you say, you didn't hang your arm. That's not hanging. That's not relaxed. That's up in the air. It's 3 inches higher than it should be. They said, no, it's not. It's relaxed. And you punch them right in the shoulder and you pull that hand off and you say, relax that thing. Spaghetti up there. Let that thing hang down. And then you push the hand back over towards the handle. It's always 2 or 3 inches lower than they thought was natural relaxed hanging. And you do that, and they all do that. I mean, even my students do it, even after I tried to embarrass them as hard as I could. You know, the putter, length of the putters are all wrong for human good skill arm hangs. They're just wrong. And people reach for the center of the putter that was made by a doofus that don't know how to make a putter because it doesn't know putting skills. And so they're reaching up to the center of the handle, like accepting an invitation to the big boy ball where they can get a free beer.
Do you think most putters are too long?
You hang your arm and swing it over, and it's not in the center of the handle. It's too long. That's a combination of how far over, how extreme do you bend your upper torso?
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to bend your upper torso. One thing I was going to say about aiming your face and finding out where a putter points, all those postures start and stop with satisfying yourself that the putter face is aimed where you need it to aim. They're not the same setup postures for the stroke. The setup posture for the stroke is bend your upper torso so that your elbow doesn't hit your gut on the way across your body. Nothing about the head makes any difference to the stroke. You can have your head up in the air. You can be looking at a chandelier in the sky. You can be looking down. You can be looking to your right, to your left. You can close your eyes. The head attitude, the neck attitude, really doesn't do anything at all because the stroke happens from the base of the neck down. So those two setups they're not the same. There's a guy named O'Brien that made 4 mistakes in a single sentence. He said, I don't like people putting their eye over the ball. I like them to stand up taller to the putt. with their eyes slightly inside the ball. And it's like, okay, why would you think somebody needs their eye over the ball at setup? And what setup are you talking about, the stroke or the aiming? Putter face verification setup. And even if you're talking about the aiming setup, you don't have to have your eyes over the ball. You can do it with your eyes inside the ball so long as you aim your face. All right, so the fourth mistake is eyeball position has any relationship to whether you can make a straight stroke with your arms or your shoulders. No, got zero to do with it. So, this is, what's his name, Pat O'Brien, something like that.
I don't know. I haven't heard of him.
Yeah, that's his name.
There's a lot of guys out there now.
Flash in the pan, terrible instructor, ignorant about putting skills, completely gets everything screwed up 4 different directions in one sentence. Bad. Scotty Cameron screws that up too. He says, all the great pros come to my studio in California, and I've never seen a pro, one of the top guys in golf, and they all come to my studio. None of them ever have their eyes over the ball. They all have their eyes about a quarter inch or so inside the ball. And then he stops. And you go, come here a minute, Scotty. I want to ask you a question. And then you slap him twice. And you say, why'd you bring that up, Scotty? What's it related to, this eye over the ball business where you say don't put your eye over? What's it relate to? And he pauses, dumbstruck, and you say, smack, smack. Is it either aiming or is it stroke? Do you know what you're talking about there, Scotty? Which one are you talking about? And he doesn't really know why he brought it up. But he's heard that eye over the ball is kind of a thing, so he wants to be the expert that says, no, it's not, with all the weight of the pros that come see him. Mm-hmm. And so he thinks about your choice, A or B, aiming or stroke, and he says, I think it has to do with stroke. And it doesn't. It doesn't have a thing to do with stroke. It does if you don't know what you're doing. Your stroke, if you plant your neck parallel to the deck of the green, horizontal, mm-hmm. That's pretty uncomfortable. But the base of the neck kind of sets a little template or a clutch for the plane of your shoulder or your arm swing that will match the base of the neck if you don't know what you're doing. All right, now let's take the neck and lift the forehead up until the neck is pointing up about 15, 16 degrees. Well, let's go ahead and make it 19 degrees. Now, the base of your neck makes a little clutch plate that says your arms ought to swing on a tilted plane of about 19 degrees. In most cases, that will be the shaft angle of a 71 degree upright or conventional lie angle of a putter. 71 is 19 off a vertical. So if you lift your neck up and don't know what you're doing, you'll probably default towards making a tilt backswing and forward swing with either your arms or your shoulders on a plane that kind of matches the shaft angle of the putter. Is that good? Not really. Why? Because as a tilted angle stroke goes straight back and straight through on tilt, it's like running the base of your the heel of your putter along a tilted plank. Let's say the plank is 8 inches high from the ground to the top of the plank, and the plank is leaned back 14 degrees. And the heel of the putter is right in the middle of the plank on the ground. And then when you make a backstroke, it traces the plank upward to the 8-inch high edge. And that 8-inch high edge is leaned back from the line of the putt on the ground by about maybe 2 or 3 inches. All right. Now, if you looked at that swing, it actually goes straight back and straight through, but you'll think it was on an arc. Right?
Right.
because it came inside a couple inches. The putting arc is a straight back and straight through stroke when the plank is leaning back 14 degrees. And they didn't know that until they asked me, and I explained it to them. Joey and Rick Hamilton, from somewhere in Mississippi or something. They didn't know that what they did was they took that wireframe line of the backstroke and the forward stroke coming back to the inside, and then they made a little projection straight down onto the ground that looked like a curve. It's not a straight back, straight through on a tilt. But they made that little curve like a shadow of that wireframe up and back. And they put it on the ground, and then they came vertically up from that curve about 2 or 3 inches and called it the putting arc. And then they started misinstructing people on how to use the putting arc. They said that you roll your arms and hands to stay on the putting arc. No,
Yeah, I
you don't.
remember that.
And they said that you fan the face open and then through impact closed. And they drew little lines on the top of the putting arc at the top of the backswing to show that your putter face was open to the right. And then the impact the same distance in front of the ball was closed to the left. That's not right. That's not how you trace that. So they had an iron Archie, and to compound their ignorance, they had a robot that would trace the putting arc at the PGA Merchandise Show. And they did not know how the putting robot actually did that, because the putting arc doesn't have any arms and hands that will roll face open, path open. All right. So what they did was they had a putter assembly of shoulders, arms, and putter all fixed in shape. And then they had a slot in the middle of the shoulder bar. And then they had a neck on the chest and foot part of the robot that was all one shape. And they slotted the shoulder assembly onto the pole of the neck. If the neck is parallel to the floor, the only stroke that a robot can possibly make is straight back, straight through. And so that won't trace the putting arc. But if you take that neck and lift it up 14 degrees off of horizontal to the floor, then the only stroke that putting robot can make is a 14-degree tilt angle straight back and straight through. And to make the putter trace the putting arc, the robot, you lift that neck up 14 degrees and you screw every bolt you can find as tight as hell. And then you start it swinging and it will trace the putting arc, but the face will stay square to the aim at address, and there's no fanning open of the face.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no turning of any arms. There's no turning of any hands. There's none of what they've been teaching golfers to actually do. So, not good.
No.
But anyway, the recap again was read with math, read with instincts, and trust the instincts. The start line is headlights or open the face until you don't have to speed up, and then headlights, or use an angle, use a target. But trust the instincts instead of the math. Stroke is got to start it wherever the start line is going, but the best way to do that is always putt exactly where you aim and then learn how to aim so you aim to the target correctly. Get behind the ball, aim behind the ball, get beside the ball, know that you're going to putt exactly where you aim so there's no warning signal from the pull stroke. And then if you want to check where the putter face aims, aim the face, spin the head. And then pace control is monkey cow. How far are you going? It's either plop in the hole or bump T-peg over at the target, imaginary target up on the fall line. Nicely, gently bump it. Or putt to the fall line without T-peg. Gently cross the fall line with 1 or 2 more rolls maximum. And that's the monkey part. And then you do bada bing, bada boom. And the size happens instinctively and you're always on. And that's what science and logic and 4 skills taught in terms of how they work will change a PGA Tour player's life in about an hour and a half.
Before we wrap up, your new Facebook page, I wanted to let people know about that.
Right.
How I know it's private, so if someone wanted to follow that, is there a way they can do it? Or
no. I mean, they have to get certified, basically.
Well, then they just need to get certified.
That's for putting zone coaches who have been certified and want to talk shop.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my regular Facebook page, which is Geoff space Mangum, search that on Facebook. Geoff Mangum. I have a lot to do with putting. And anybody wants to ask me a question on my regular Facebook page, Geoff Mangum on Facebook, please ask me. I'll spend a couple hours answering it. But I don't really want non-coaches in the private Facebook page, because I want that to be shop talk.
Okay.
That's not shared with other people.
Well, then everyone, and I'll have your Facebook page linked into the summary and description.
Right. Yeah, they want to get certified. Yeah, you can do that. You give them a full day lesson in putting zone methods, then they can start teaching all they want. Be a good teacher, and they want to talk shop, come in the private bar.
Yep. It's a cool thing. I highly recommend it to anybody out there looking to improve their putting or their instruction of putting. Is to check out your website. That'll again be in there as a link. Reach out to you. You've always been more than gracious with your time.
Right. Anybody wants the 240-some page book of articles? There's about 40 articles in there, all about different subjects, like how you do distance control, how you do drills for it, how do you do lagging, how do you do reading, aiming, how do you do stroke control. What's a good setup?
I'll reach out, email you probably tomorrow, and ask you for the link to that with the follow-up to all this stuff, and I'll have that up on my website for anyone who wants to check it out.
Right. So, one thing that I hand out is a 45-minute video that I did with Steve Elkington that shows the corner real good.
Mm-hmm.
And it shows a little bit about distance control, but that's a really entertaining little video.
I'll try to get that in there too. Put that.
I think all these links. He does too. They don't like to hear that. Well, they're narcissistic people. They don't like to hear that.
Jeff, it's been awesome as always. We've blown through 3 hours, and I'm sure we could go another 3, but we'll have to leave it for third installment for you to come back.
I gotta go get some whatever that sore throat stuff is.
We'll go get it, because we've got to keep talking some more at another point. I really appreciate it. I think everyone's going to learn a lot again.
Yeah, great. I got my COVID vaccine number 2 yesterday, so I'm sitting here wasted. I got a pain in my arm.
Well, grind through it. You'll be out there putting again, instructing and doing everything.
All for the greater good. Thank you, Pete.
Awesome. You have a great night.
All right, see you then. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to today's show. If you enjoyed it, you can find more information on today's episode and other topics at golf360.blog. There you'll find the show notes and links related to this episode, as well as any other episode that we've done so far to date. If you're interested in improving your game and would like to learn more from yours truly by taking a private lesson, a half-day or multi-day school, club or putter fitting, you can reach me through the blog site or by email, pete@golf360.blog. So some of you may be asking, what is the golf paradigm? All you have to do is click on the homepage while on my blog site to discover how you can start playing better than you ever thought possible. Or you can simply sign up, again, on the blog page for my instructional videos, where I give regular tips on all areas of the game, to include the swing, club design and fitting, health, fitness and nutrition, the mental aspects, and equally as important, the integration of all those things together. I'm also on social media, and you can find me at The Golf Paradigm. That's PARADIGM. And I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, also under the same name, The Golf Paradigm. Facebook is usually the best way to reach me for questions and or comments, and I look forward to hearing what all of you have to say. This podcast is brought to you in part by Old South Golf Links. A short ride across a bridge from Hilton Head Island is one of the area's finest golf courses and a hidden treasure. Set up on towering pines and ancient oaks with sweeping marsh vistas, truly makes Old South Golf Links a one-of-a-kind golfing experience. The Clyde Johnson design was named one of the top 10 new public courses when it opened, and it also takes full advantage of the natural beauty of the Low Country. Old South is a fun and unique challenge for golfers of every skill level and a favorite of both locals and visitors. Whether it's your first time here or you're a regular, you'll be treated and feel like family. From the bag drop to check-in at the fully stocked pro shop with both men's and women's apparel, to breakfast or lunch before or after your round, the staff is always ready and willing to help. Experience for yourself why Old South is one of the premier golf courses in the Hilton Head area and why it will quickly become a favorite of yours too. Visit them in person or online at www.oldsouthgolf.com, or to make it tee time, simply call the pro shop at 843-785-5353.